It's Friday.
What the deuce? What the devil you say, sir? You say, sir, the devil, sir. I think we do the whole thing today as a restoration. I think we should do the whole thing as a restoration piece. That's my view. Yeah, that's what I think we should do.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we should do the whole thing as a restoration comedy. The whole thing. Just come into my mind. It's genius. It's new. It's fresh.
I feel like it's none of those things, but okay.
Okay, fine. Let's not do a restoration comedy. Let's do it as a passion play. It's Friday.
Russell, you can't possibly leave me all the way here in Hertfordshire.
Yeah, I don't think you've quite got the passion play thing. Could be wrong there. Hey, now listen, Andrea, come on, theme tune.
Thank you, baked potato.
Morning to you, Andrea, and thank you for your comments and everything. I really appreciate it. Andrea's great. I've never met Andrea. You know her, I believe. Ed Grossman of God Morning.
Oh.
I was pissing a boo on my boosticle. It still makes me laugh, that.
And that's the main thing.
Now, here's an interesting little thing. Wow, are you partying in here?
Good morning, Christy. Hi,
now,
boys.
This is great.
Sleep, thanks to CBD.
Yep. Now, Chrissy,
I didn't know it was that boring, but okay. Do you see what I did there?
No. Do it again. Do the gag again.
No, I was saying, personally, I didn't think the show was that boring. She said she had a very good night's sleep thanks to CBD, but I like the program. I don't know why it would send her to sleep.
I'm going to explain this gag that Phil's sort of trampling through. We started, I think, 9 weeks ago. Can you believe that, Phil? 9 weeks ago, we started a new show.
Blimey.
I know, it was amazing, isn't it? Called The ABC of CBD with a guy called Ollie Mammon. And we had months of conversation because I thought, how's this going to go? And it's been a monster hit. And Chrissy has been watching the show since episode 1. She hasn't slept well. And she went and bought some of Ollie's products from the Tincture Club. And you get a discount by putting in a code on Men's Radio. And she's sleeping like a baby now, which is fantastic. I am so, so pleased. Emma Webb, hello. I was says this only once. I used to love that. Sue Sleet, up in Fife, via Bromley and Staples Corner. You've never forgotten. Good morning to you. And good morning to Dave Sleet. It's sleeting down out there, Phil.
Hey, do you know what? I see what you did there, and I think you're worthy of one of these. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Marvellous. Mark Brooks, Mel's son. It was a great International Men's Day yesterday. Mark, did you celebrate it? Did you do something? I promoted it all over our social media. Mark, I'm a bit worried. Morning, everyone. Looking forward to today's show. Mark, you clearly haven't heard it before.
Don't worry, we'll soon change that, Mark.
Yeah, he will come to his set. This fellow who looks eminently sensible because he's wearing a tie in his picture, so we like him straight away. My quote today from the middle of Spain is, I thought you were going to do it. My quote today, we may exasperate each other sometimes, but we are friends always. Not me, Phil. I'll be honest with you. No, we just exasperate.
I didn't realise that you were building me up there to read out the rest of that quote. Shall I try again?
Yeah. Hey. Okay. Here's a fantastic quote that's just come in from the middle of Spain, Phil.
My quote today, we may exasperate each other sometimes, but we are friends always. How was that?
Beautiful.
Thanks.
That was beautiful. Now, if you could say it with a slight more, we've got that one for safety, love. We've got that one for safety.
You know what?
Could just have a slight smile in the voice with a hint of menace.
I'm not going to lie.
What?
Even I had goosebumps when I did that.
It was, I know, amazing.
Thanks.
Beautiful, beautifully read. Beautiful. It was like, I don't want to overcook this egg, but I thought for a second Richard Burton had come into, it was either Richard Burton or Orson Welles had entered the studio.
I could only dream of sounding like Richard Burton.
was a core black, slow black night. It was great support, Russ, says Mark Brooks. Oh my God, Mark, that is amazing. Now, Mark is obviously heavily involved in International Men's Day. And look at this. Put that quote up if you'd be so kind, Philip. It was great support, Russ.
Putting my own tweet out, to be honest.
We had 195,000 tweets. Wowza.
You even managed to change the ITV daytime schedule.
Bravo you, Mark. That's absolutely...
The first ever edition of Loose Men.
Yeah, was it?
Yes. Sadly not. Though I do have to stress, I think by and large I prefer Loose Women. But then again, I suppose they've had...
I've got to go out on a date, obviously.
No, I think that, to be fair, though, Loose Women have had a 20-year head start on Loose Men. But I was quite disappointed with who they chose to present it. And don't get me wrong, I didn't think you or I were in the running for it. But
yeah, that was on. It'd be good to have an agent. Who's presenting Loose Men?
Well, it was...
Ryland. Don't tell me. Ryland and Keith
what?
Lemon.
No, actually, curious enough, it wasn't Ryland.
Oh God, it's the one job on TV he hasn't got.
No, it was Marvin Humes.
Who?
Him off of JLS, you know, that well-known broadcaster. So
I thought it was one of your radio stations. You did agree.
No, JLS, the band. So he was hosting the thing. So he was Ruth Langsford, as it were. Imagination. And then you had a chap who I got to be honest, I've never heard of before, but apparently he's the chap who narrates Love Island.
It lost me. I don't know.
Okay. Then they also had Ronan Keating, who I like a lot.
Ronan. He's a nice fella.
Very nice. Very good. I just think he should have presented it because he can present. He actually does.
Ronan's a very, very nice chap, actually. Ronan.
And also
time for Ronan.
Live from his home, because I don't know if you've ever seen Loose Women recently. The new setup now.
I've never watched it. I have no idea.
They normally have 4 panelists, but the way that Loose Women works now, because of COVID, is 3 panelists in the studio, 1 panelist works from home.
Hey, here's a question for you.
And
do you think on Loose Women they sit and they talk about men's radio station, which we're funding ourselves? Do you think they do that? No.
I think they talk about women's radio. And then the 4th person was Roman Kemp.
What, so he hasn't got enough presenting the Capital Breakfast Show?
That was their lineup as far as Loose Men is concerned. So I'm not going to lie. I don't think it was the strongest debut for a program, but at the same time, I don't want to peak too early, I guess.
Here's the thing.
I would have had Stephen Fry, no doubt about it.
He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't be bothered. But I'm going to ask you a question, and this is a question for everybody here. Lee, thank you. Email on the way. This is ridiculous, Lee. I am there for you. I am there to help you. Lee's got a particular issue, which is I'm going to put it on the umbrella, Phil, of bullying. I'm not going to go into details. Lee, send a message now. Can I go into some details or not? Otherwise, I'm not going to go into detail. I'll skirt around it. I just say it's bullying. And he reached out and I said, yeah, of course, phone me. You know, so we spoke on the phone. And I don't get it. I'm really with Lee on this issue. I don't get why people are being. I thought it would have died down, this issue. He's trying to be helpful. That's the only way I can say. Go for it. All right. Okay. Right. Lee, like everybody else in the theatrical industry, in the arts and entertainment, which is a huge spectrum, and many of you have been hugely affected by this. Lee put together a group on Facebook and created flash mobs to bring attention to the plight of the arts. Now, I know loads of you with small shops and businesses, or even bigger shops and businesses. Everybody, it's like the Battle of the Somme out there. I get it. But just for a second, just look at arts and entertainment, which is central to so many of our lives, and we love it. And all Lee's trying to do is bring attention to it by doing flash mobs, bringing in West End producers. If I'm getting this wrong, Lee, jump in, phone up Phil. And that's it. Now, Lee is not in the industry per se. He's not a producer. He's not an actor. He's not in arts and entertainment as such. But he was what would you call it, Phil? Concerned citizen. And I think from scratch, he did great. People in the industry are absolutely trolling him. And you kind of say, why would you do that? Here's somebody who's trying to help. They're trying to help. And why be so vicious? I thought it would have died down, but what he's saying is the anti-group, all the trolls that are piling on Lee Durnford, who's a very nice chap as it happens, I don't get it. You're trying to help, because if you follow that through, Phil, and I want to know what you think. If we were to help nurses, you're not a nurse, I'm not a nurse. So would professional nurses say, Phil and Russ, shut up, you can't help us because you're not nurses? I don't get it. If we say you should be supporting, pick one of our Sue who owns Nailcoat Hall, what is she going to turn around and say, well, you're not in the hospitality industry, shut up? I don't understand why people have to be rude. All right, Lee, what it boils down to is that their biggest beef is that I'm an amateur, says Lee, and they are professionals.
Yeah. So Lee, I mean, to me, there's a very simple explanation in that. You take it or leave it if you want, because obviously I'm no professional and no professional advisor in that sense. But the way I look at that is that people who usually get quite stroppy with those who are, quote, amateur is because they can actually see something in that amateur that poses a threat to them.
Yeah. That's what I think. But, it's not like if Lee's saying, I'm going to take your job or I'm going to start producing. If he started producing shows, that's more income for people, isn't it? I'm doing something to support them. They are not yet. They are being deeply rude and throwing huge accusations. What? You're taking their jobs? Are you gonna dismantle the Palace Theatre brick by brick and build it in your garden? I mean, I don't understand. I mean, I don't understand it. Do you get it, Phil? Why are people rude?
But I'm just honestly, I think that it's no excuse at the moment. A lot of people are incredibly frustrated with the situation they find themselves in, and as a result of it, take things out that they possibly don't mean to on others. Don't get me wrong, not excusing it, never would do. I'm annoyed, I'm frustrated at the moment, but I don't ever think I've lashed out at anybody, stranger or familiar. The point is that I reckon emotions are running very high, and especially in an industry where emotions ordinarily run high, and I wonder if that's sort of what it can boil down to.
Now they've reported him to Equity. For what? For trying to help. How dare you? Lee, how dare you? How dare you be a concerned citizen and try and help an industry that is on its arse because it's been kicked so hard? How dare you? Go back to doing what you do so well. Dave Sleet, who we like a lot and is horribly bright. The industry has forgot its roots of open-air performances. Absolutely so. From traveling groups. So anyone that tries to show an alternative to their perception of how to survive is seen by fearful individuals as a threat. What stupid. I don't mean your comment. It's just stupid. Sam Monroe, you bald bastard. Why have you gone on full Stan Laurel? I felt like it. That's why. I haven't really. I just decided I like it a bit more deconstructed. It's another fine mess you got me into. Stan Laurel, nice cutting edge modern reference, by the way.
Hang on.
What?
I don't think I look much like Oliver Hardy.
No, I mean, you're about the size of Oliver Hardy's arm.
Wow.
You are. You're about the size of his. He was huge. He was It's another fine mess you got me into. I loved Lauren and Hardy. Bloody hilarious. All right, Chrissy Holt, would you like to handle this one? Philip Bay of Hertfordshire. I'm going to switch on my charger.
Yeah, oh, so sorry, John Humphreys. Right, okay, let's have a look. They don't deserve help. Then. They don't deserve help, then, do they?
No, that's not the question. The one underneath Francine Warner's comment.
For God's sake, I don't know, do I? Hi, boys. Oh.
Make an effort.
Say, Chrissy, don't be ridiculous. Hi, boys, I'm thick and need an answer. not quite. On Spanish news, the millennial people are leaving Madrid because of lockdown. Can you tell me who are millennial people? Are they people who were born in 2000? Now, Chrissy, actually, that's an interesting question because I do know the answer to this because technically speaking, I constitute as a millennial, only just though.
Excuse me?
I know. Those who are millennial are thought to have been born from the mid-80s up until the noughties. It's that generation. It's that generation. Now, I think more realistically, millennials are those who are born from the 90s onwards, but apparently it's mid-80s. But apparently it's mid-80s up until the noughties. And that is what constitutes as a millennial. Now, I have to tell you, I think you'll find that there are some millennials who are less millennial than others. But a word of caution, never cross a millennial. Because they're angry, because they're right, and because frankly, no matter how much suffering you've been through in your life, they've had it 10 times worse.
World War II, nothing.
That's a millennial.
World War II was nothing because they couldn't get a proper espresso coffee.
Ah, thank you. Ed Grossman has told me that apparently it's 1983 to 2005. So there you go.
Bunch of idiots. Anyway, there we are.
All of us.
No. It's like,
I'm an older millennial. I'm a vintage millennial.
are you like a fine millennial that's been laid down, if you'll forgive the expression, in your case, laid down to mature, like a cigar?
Oh, well, in that case, yeah, why not indeed? Now, I've got to warn you, I've fallen a bit behind today. I'm very sorry.
What's
Had a bit of a disaster.
Oh, I bet it's bread. I bet it's bread related. I'm going out on a limb here. I'm changing glasses, everyone. See if you like these ones better. I only wear them to read. I don't ever wear them to drive or walk or anything.
Oh, hang on. Wait, let's see. Oh, let's get a close up of those. Oh, look at those.
You like these?
That's much better.
You prefer these ones?
Yeah, I think they look less boots.
These are all off. These are my proper read. All right, hang on. This is excitement for you. These are my actual proper sighted reading glasses. These are they.
By the way, may I apologize to anyone who's actually listening to this on mensradiostation.com. I recognize you can't see what's going on at the moment. At the moment,
parade. These ones.
At the moment, Russ is rather beautifully demonstrating that one ear is a little higher than the other.
Shut your face. I can't help it. It's how my face was born. How is that working?
And he's got, at the moment, these are sort of like just off square. Actually, I quite like those as well, actually, those frames.
These are my proper, I think these are Calvin. Are these Calvin Klein? I don't know what these are.
Ow.
Don't know. But these are actual sighted glasses for reading, and the others are off Tinternet. Because I have them because I sit at screens for so long.
Hey, Russ, did you get them on a site? You said they're off the internet.
No, I got it the first time. I'll be honest. I got it the first time. Sue Cressman, hello, my friend. We were mentioning you. I went to the opticians. I went to the opticians yesterday.
I was just a bit disappointed at the reaction. That was all.
Hey, you know when you're learning to be an optician? Shut it, Andrea. You know when you're learning to be an optician, right?
Oh, they're all coming out in force today. Sen Monroe, Mr. Magoo, Kimmy Lashmar. You need glasses to read your glasses.
Well, I do. Kimmy, you're I blooming do. Essex Adventure. Hello, Toby. Morning, guys. Sorry, I defected today. I've just finished on the BP.
Now, come on, Sue.
What? What are you doing? Were you talking about Nailcoat Hall?
Well, you can't blame her, really, if she was.
No, I can't. Prefer those, but again, you look delicious in anything, says Francie Warner. Which ones do you prefer? Fran, no, I don't know. Which ones? These ones? The ones which are yellow tinted? I don't know. Who cares? Michael Warner, do you know? He looks like Penfold. He totally does. You got an image? Can you look for an image of Penfold, Phil, and share it on the screen? Penfold.
I like Penfold.
Danger Mouse. Fran, I'd never thought of that. Phil, check your phone, says Sen Monroe.
No, I know. Sorry, Sen. I have seen that message, and I will do in just a moment. But sadly, I have to flick cameras
This is so exciting. We've got, by the way, some fantastic guests coming up. I'm a bit overexcited. If you loved football and other things, Luther Blissett. I'm waiting weeks to get him taken for it. She was on the BBC talking about nail coat and our weddings. Sue, we're not married. This is fantasy on your part. Talking about the weddings you have. Sorry, I misunderstood. And our wedding is an anniversary that we're celebrating, but sadly not this awful year. No, you've lost 75. 75 weddings she had booked at Sue Cressman. 75. Imagine that on your bottom line, on your balance sheet. Yep, we're budgeting for 75 weddings. They've all gone. Wow. Now, Roving Phil, where are you going now? Where's he off?
Well, I'm pleased you asked me that because at the moment,
just think, why do I get out of bed? What is the point?
Oh, I agree completely.
New
I don't
books
know
to
why you
read.
get out of bed.
Why? I don't know why. Only because Ebony needs to be. But she doesn't even need to be let out.
Oh, I see. Oh, that's
Right. Come along. Where's he going?
So hang on. Hang on. Oh, hang on. Someone put the show on.
This is so exciting. We've got a nice fire alarm that we're looking at. At least we've got a smoke alarm there in Hertfordshire. That's a good thing. Got kind of chandelier thing going on in the
I
ceiling.
have to be slightly sensible because my father is on the phone and he's probably on a work call. Anyway, so here's the thing: the collar's not quite ready.
Does John Humphrey say I better be quiet because my father?
The collar's been shaped, but unfortunately, I didn't have time before the show.
The collar's been shaped. Is this some perversion?
Shaped.
Oh, shaped. Right, shaped.
But unfortunately, I didn't have time to put the egg wash on because they have to sit for a little while. So don't mind me. I'm just going to be putting egg wash on the collar. So,
if you think that's a euphemism, ladies and gentlemen, you're sadly overexcited about Phil Day's love life. Yeah. Right. What do you? What's the name of that woman who does the cleaning? Aggie and Maggie. What are they called?
Mackenzie. Oh, Kim and Aggie.
Kim. Jeez, she scares the crap out of me.
I'm not surprised. She's a very scary lady.
She's frightening. The other one seems really nice, but Kim.
Oh, can I say, Aggie is amazing. Aggie is lovely. But Kim.
I've never met either of them, but she seems Kim.
Kim scares me.
Kate Robbins does the best Kim impression. It's hilarious. If you go onto YouTube and look up Kate Robbins, who's an old mate of mine, and turns out she's the mum. I've known her for years. It turns out she's Emily Attack's mum. Who knew?
Yeah, Emily Attack. Do you not know that?
No, I know. I have. That's your mother in the background there. What's she doing?
Yes, my mother is in the background.
What is she doing? We need a full update.
Quite right.
What your mother's doing now?
Well, she was defecating the garden, and now she's washing her hands.
Phil, this is the most boring thing I have ever seen on radio. You putting egg wash on holler. I can't think of anything more dull.
What's wrong with you?
Oh, it's just dull. Oh, Kim upset my pals Colleen and Linda Nolan. They're nice.
Yes.
The Nolans. Aren't they nice?
Yes.
The Nolans. What a bloody track. Sue, if you're friends with them, please would you send my love and Phil's love, because, God, what a blooming thing to happen. What a thing
I've got to tell you, I don't think they'll care too much if we send our love, but it's a nice thought.
They won't. Well, they probably won't, but you know what I mean. To the family, it's just a thought. It makes the show more exciting, says Chrissy. Chrissy, God only knows what your life is like on the farm. If you think this is exciting, I mean, I've had talk about watching paint dry. This is literally like watching paint dry. This is it. Fanny Craddock. What was that? Sen, what was that gag? I don't even think I can do it. It was about donuts. I'll leave the rest of you work that one out.
I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. But anyway.
No, you don't, because you know who Fanny Craddock.
I know who Fanny Craddock is. I just don't know what you're talking about.
Does Phil do painting?
Yes, I do.
I think he does. I think he does portrait. If you want a portrait of you and Michael, Fran, I think he'll come round. You have to pose. We should get Paul Hollywood to. That would be genius. Ramsey, can you imagine the galloping gum shield? That's very silly. Sen, you're in rocking form today, boy. That's funny. And thank you. Sen and I were having a very nice conversation online very late last night. That was it. Lord. My donuts are so lovely, just like Fanny's.
Oh yes, they're right.
Pretty close to the line. It was her husband. This has got absolutely nothing to do with mental health and well-being, but it's making me laugh, and I hope you're finding it vague.
If it's making you laugh, then it's good for your health.
It's a good thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I used to
Laughing
love the
is good.
My
And
mum
actually-
loved the Galloping Gourmet. What was his name? Graham Kerr, wasn't it? Graham Kerr.
You know, people can make mockery of me making a bread on radio, which is an interesting concept in itself. But honestly, it's good for me. It makes me feel better. I actually find it very therapeutic.
So it's all about you.
Absolutely.
So basically, we've invested
selfish.
thousands so that you feel better, Phil. My
And
work on this
doesn't
planet
that-
is fun.
Doesn't
I
that
have
make
nothing.
you feel good?
Very therapeutic. Fran, you don't make hollow. You go out and buy it.
I'm now
Yeah.
making myself a little rooibos.
What are you doing now?
Rooibos tea.
You're having a Bruegger's.
Rooibos.
You're making Bruegger's tea.
Rooibos. Red
Oh,
Bush.
Bruegger's. Yeah, the special
It's
tea.
a Bruegger's
You
with
put it in
tea.
the hot water and you have to have a row with something.
You're not helping.
Bruegger's tea.
I'm now
You get
being
the
told
tea.
my mother said she also thought I said Bruegger's tea as
Yeah,
well.
you
For
do. You
God's
get the
sake.
tea. Bruegger's tea. This is a whole new thing. Any jam? No jam. No.
It's
just have
Afrikaans, but with a British accent. Which doesn't work very
Bruegger's
well.
tea, I think I want to follow this through. You get the tea bag, put it in the boiling water, and you just pick a row with the first person. Then you don't talk for them for 25 years. That's Bruegger's tea. Every Friday, we should get Phil to make a bread-based product on live radio.
Sorry.
What a
about that.
bread-based product.
I do apologise about that.
Yeah. Your hair is so much better, you know. You just look. I know it was a huge thing and it was incredibly brave, but it really was the right decision.
It's kind of funny when people say that. I mean, I don't think it was that brave. I'm very grateful.
I was
for you
brave. Come on, you were known for that coiffure of yours, and I think it was really great what you did. Don't encourage him, Lee. Lee, I don't want to have to get and complain to Equity about you. You're on very thin ice, boy. Very, very thin ice.
I was on thin ice this morning when I left the house this morning. It was
Was it icy?
absolutely freezing.
I thought, yeah. I think Phil should give us a lesson in bread, mate. Do you know what, Sue? I hate to say that. That's a damn good idea. Phil looks about 12. He always looks.
That's using your loaf.
Hey, I think you should, Phil. That's really good. Why don't we do that one day?
What, make bread?
Yeah, make it from scratch. Show everybody how it's done. I think that'd be quite.
I can try, but I have to warn you, the biggest problem with that is that there's quite a lot of steps in between. So you actually have to.
It's boring as hell.
Well, you just have to wait a long time. So I suppose we could do it over the 3-hour show.
We could do it 3 hours, for God's sake. It'd be fine. You know, but just don't do it in the middle of somebody pouring out their heart about a mental breakdown and say, love to talk to you about this. Just going off to show some more bread making, that would be a little bit rude, even by our standards. My scalp is extra smooth today, says Sen Monroe. What do you do? Do you have a do you shave it, or what do you do with it? I don't know. So how long is the bread going to be in the oven? Like I care. How long would it be in the oven for now? An hour?
It has to sit for 20 minutes now because because the egg wash, it traumatizes the yeast. You see.
Why did I ask?
Well, you asked. It traumatizes the yeast. So what you have to do is you have to.
Traumatizes the yeast.
It's true.
What does it say? Your parents never loved you.
And you're from the Middle East.
Middle East.
Anyway, so what happens is that the yeast gets a bit traumatized by the egg wash going on. So you have to let it
What do you
start.
mean traumatize?
Because yeast is
They're white. They haven't spoken to each other for years. Well, how does it work?
yeast is a living organism, right? It is active. Okay. So what you're doing is but everything you do is you agitate it. Thank you, Lee Durnford. You're proving it. So what I'm saying, and proving it, proving the bread, not proving a point. But anyway, yeah, it's a bit like sort of the baker who had a lot on his mind. He had a need to talk. Anyway, right now the point is that when you put the egg wash on, it annoys the yeast and it starts to sink in a bit. So you let it rise for a further 20 minutes before putting it in the oven. Then when you put the challah in the oven, 30 minutes it's in there and out comes a challah. Your good health.
Sorry. Anyway, back with the show. Now, here we go.
You want me to do this live on air?
Russ, what's on your T-shirt? Well, today's T-shirt, everybody, is...
Oh, look at that. If Jeremy Corbyn could play the drums.
I'm going to burn the T-shirt now. This is... why did you have to say that? It ruined it. Now every time I'm looking at it... This is a 1930s jazz design, and I love it. And I just saw it.
After hearing that, you're going to put it. You're going to put it in the Corbyn. Thanks.
I can't bear it. I swear to God. Now then,
ladies and gentlemen, we have
a
half hours left of this show. Good luck.
We do have proper guests. I don't know what's the matter with you today. I think you got up too early or something. Paul Claridge.
Oh, I did. It's gone a bit doolally. Am I allowed to?
I want to. What? Huh?
Now, I have absolutely no idea what time our first guest is on, because it sort of doesn't say on our running order. So I'm guessing he's on at midday.
Not like I run the station. Anyway, Paul Claridge. Hi all. Hope you've got a great day planned. Paul. Hope you've got a great day planned. Yes, I thought I'd meet up with all my best friends. We'd go to lunch at Ham Yard Hotel, all my pals. Then we go off to the Soho Whiskey Club, and then we go clubbing. No, I got nothing planned, like every other day. Chirpy optimist. Update on the... Oh, this is good. Update on the... Have you got a great day planned? Does anyone actually have plans? It's a serious question. What do you do? Nothing. Finished some brilliant books. Trying to get my new book in order and running the radio. Right. Hi all. Hope you got a great day planned. Update on the Croydon homeless person I'm trying to help. Oh, this is good. This is not good. I mean, it's good you're talking about it. She and her friends are still on the streets. It's freezing out there. It's bloody awful. Croydon Council, still no response. See, this makes me crazy with rage. And a big well-known homelessness charity who I contacted have been as useful as a chocolate teapot. You see, now this interests me a lot.
At least you didn't name them, at least.
See, Paul, I find this extraordinary. In fact, they are a faceless charity and said via a corporate email they couldn't help.
Wow.
Could you read the rest of this? Because I've only got some of it on my screen. You've got all of it. Because you're a Gelsemarker.
Oh, that. Yes. Okay, so let's have a look. Hold that thought, ladies and gentlemen. Just got to find the comment, you see, I'm afraid. Didn't know I was reading it. So.
Yeah, it's called being part of a show. That's how it works.
Oh, I know what it's called, silly Billy.
On it.
Right, hang on.
Flash of the real me, by the way.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, because I've only got it on my screen. You've got all of it. Because you're a...
There we are.
What are you doing?
Well, I was trying to find the comments, so I thought rather than leave a gap of silence, I'd repeat the show. Anyway, so... Sorry, just either that or I didn't realize Facebook was going to start playing the audio. Anyway, oh dear. Right. So apparently this homeless charity about a useless chocolate teapot. In fact, they're a faceless charity and said via a corporate email they couldn't help. However, they haven't yet met my friend Eddie Nestor and his team, who asked me on air yesterday for an update and will now be gunning for them.
So explain this to me, Phil. I don't know who the charity is. I don't want to know. We're not going to name them on air. If you're a charity and the basis is you're helping people who are homeless, you don't send an email saying, well, we can't help. That's what you're there for. It's a bit like being the AA or the RAC or Green Flag, and you break down. They go, well, that's not our problem. I mean, can you imagine? You remember, hello, I've broken down on the M25. What do you want me to do? It'd be that, wouldn't it? What do you want me to do about it? Well, you're a vehicle recovery service. Yeah, and? Well, could you recover my own? Well, that's not my problem. It's the same thing. What worries me about so many charities, I would love your view on this, everybody, is they pay not in every case, but in so many cases, the chief executive is making a fortune. We're talking six figures easy. Easy. And you think, I'm giving my money to a charity. I want to know that God, Phil, you're so handsome now. I can see you. I want to know, quite simply, that my money that I'm giving is going to the end user of the charity. I do not want it going on the salaries of your staff. I do not want it going on luxurious offices. I want it to go to the people, children, situation that you're trying to help.
Oh dear, hang on. Now, Simon, can I just say I do apologize. This is going to be very boring to anyone who's listening.
Again, I'm going to go mad.
But can I just point out that someone is at this present moment spamming our Facebook message, our Facebook post. So please do not reply to that individual who's spamming. Do not click on it. Don't like it. Don't click on the link. Nothing. Ignore, please. I would deal with it. Thank you. Here endeth the public announcement.
Ding dong. We need one of those, by the way. I want one of those on the show. Ding dong. That's exciting. Oh, Christ. Anyway, that's good news. She must be happy. So here we are. Do you see what I'm saying about charities, everybody? Does that make a degree of sense? That you want it to go to the end user. You don't want it going to on salaries and everything else. I know you have to have staff, but it should be kept. Angela Lee, I work with Foundation. I don't know what that is. While on placement, the staff and management were very highly paid. Well, this is the problem, gang. This is the problem with so many charities. When I was Chief Barker of Children's Variety, we used to call Variety Club, Children's Charity, I could say with hand on heart that 90p at that point, 90 out of every pound went to the children, and then the cost just escalated like crazy. And by the way, before you point any fingers, mine was a voluntary situation. Not only did I not get a salary, no expenses, and I had to travel all over the country. No expenses whatsoever, not a penny. Weren't allowed to charge a single cent.
Too right.
Yeah, I wish it had been explained to me before I agreed to take the role. That would have been really handy. My favourite was it's a Variety Club Golf Day. I said, okay, well, I don't play golf. Oh, no, but you have to pay for it. I said, I'm what? Oh, you have to pay for it. I'm not quite following you here. Or you have to hire the golf course and pay for everybody.
What?
And pay for the lunch.
You got to hire the golf course. That's a bit of a hurt score.
I didn't even bother to tell me any of this.
Blimey. Oh, hello.
I'm going to take this.
Is he now? Good Lord. Oh, off he goes. Well, there you go. All right, eh? Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure to see Russ. It was very nice for him to pop in, all the same. Right, whilst he's busy dealing with his... It's unbelievable, seriously. You really wouldn't get this on Radio 4, would you? I know that it's rich coming from me. I'm always lambasted for being the one who's baking bread right in the middle of the programme. But, let's be honest, I think that's a fun element. Taking a personal phone call, who'd have thunk it? Unbelievable. Never seen me doing that. Yeah. Anyway, I figure that now is a perfect time to tell you what's coming up on today's program, because we have got some great guests coming up later on. We're going to be joined by Luther Blissett, who is, if anyone doesn't know who Luther Blissett is, and I've got to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of football, so, got to be honest, didn't overly know everything about him, but he's going to be joining us at a late... welcome back. How nice of you to pop in. He's going to be joining...
Glass supplier. I had to deal with it. It's Magali de la Cruz. When Magali de la Cruz phones me, I pick up the phone.
Here was me thinking it was something insignificant. Anyway, I was just telling them about
the most important thing in my life. I've run out of cigars.
I was just
about it.
I
so
was
3 in the morning. I'm busy ordering, and the big question was: do I need the box, or could I have them sent singly?
I was just telling you. Russ, I was just telling them about how Luther's joining us at midday today.
The detective?
No, Luther Blissett. But anyway, yeah.
I thought we had the detective on.
Sorry, no detective.
I watch every show. They're great shows. They're good, aren't they? They're good shows. So it's
well, we've also got a detective as well in the form of Stephen Thrift. Yeah, so we have got Stephen Thrift on. You'll be pleased to hear he's an investigator. So there you go. That's something. Thank God for that.
He's not only an investigator, because I've had him following your mum around for a while.
Oh,
yeah. I got a blank piece of paper saying she went to the shops, came back. That was it. That was, and he's also a close protection officer. I'm not quite sure. Oh yeah, he's an author. That's why I wanted him on. That's why. He was recommended by another author. He sounds as Luther is top man indeed. Okay.
So there we go. We're all going to be having some sort of very unusual guests for us, but exciting guests all the same. So we've got Luther coming up at midday, and then we'll be speaking to Stephen Thrift at 1:00.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then Chantel Ricard's OB.
Right. François Pascal.
She'll be joining us at 1:30 to go through TV.
Bloody silly. I can't find anything on telly. Oh, now what? What now? I'm not leaving this show.
You again. We're getting reports in now that live from Russell's front door, there appears to be a strange person waiting. Apparently, there's supposedly just delivering some sort of parcel, because it's usually the case, because no one ever really bothers to visit him. But let's not dwell on that too much, because it seems to get him down. There we go. Anyway, we look very much forward to finding out exactly what it is that Russ will be welcoming from the front door, and he should be rejoining us any moment now. I can see him in the distance, making his way back to the camera, ladies and gentlemen, with a rather unusual-looking envelope, which contains, we're not entirely sure what. But he has thrown it on the floor, assuming that it is full of some sort of germ. Anyway, I'm going to now talk normally because Russ is back, and otherwise it might sound a bit strange. Anyway, Russ, who was at the door? Oh, he's not going to turn his mic on now, have you? If you're not going to turn your mic on, then we can't hear you.
Shut up. Paul Claridge. Paul Claridge. There is a girl in Crystal Palace who thinks she's up, and there's a girl in Crystal Palace who sits by Sainsbury's who is still homeless. This is ridiculous, isn't it? It's bloody ridiculous. I give her money every so often to find herself a hostel. Let me just point out that Paul is... I'm at the point of giving her a warm coat later today. Oh, bless you, Francois. And she tells me she's still waiting for the council to house her. Disgusting. She's been on the street for a whole year. How can that be in Britain?
Now, I have to tell you what really gets my back up with this. Seriously. I mean, it is an appalling situation when anyone is homeless.
Yes.
But I find it so infuriating when I hear stories of individuals who, don't get me wrong, they may be fleeing from the most horrific situation. Let me make that very clear. I don't know background, and I perfectly appreciate that maybe someone is fleeing for their lives if they come from another land. But I get very, very grumpy when I hear that individuals who have potentially been paying into the tax system for most of their lives, potentially, or working, even if they've been paying into the taxes and they've been working, and that contributes towards the economy, working hard in this country, doing whatever it is, even if you just exist in this country, a lot of the times you can be generating for the economy, because even if it's someone who is homeless, then someone might buy a sandwich and there's VAT on that sandwich. It's something as silly as that. Everyone has a part to play, no matter how big or small, in terms of contributing towards society, right? Now, if you've got someone who has lived here for heaven knows how long, paying into the system in whichever way they can, or can afford or can't afford, whatever the case may be, and you hear that they have to wait a year on the streets trying to be homed, and yet there are individuals who are fast-tracked when they come to these shores because they're fleeing whatever situation. It angers me.
Anymore. Phil, you're not allowed to say that anymore. We've got to say it's all great. It's all bollocks, of course, but we've got to say it's great.
It's not great. I get very cross.
It's graceful. It's absolutely bloody disgraceful.
I don't like the fact that we don't know how to look after our own citizens. I think it's an appalling
Oh,
situation.
you racist. You racist. Oh, you racist.
Record.
You're racist. You hate foreigners. You're a racist.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you know what? I apologize if that makes me foreign, but if that makes me appalling towards foreigners. But may I just say as well that based on the fact that my ancestors are foreign, and I know full well how quite rightly when they came over here, they had to blooming well work for
They
what
got sod all help.
and it doesn't make me cross.
This is the point. This is the point. Look, you know, we're very grown up. I've coined a new phrase, you know, men's radio station, it's radio for grown-ups. And it is grown up. And we don't sling things like, oh, you're a racist every time you just don't like something. It's just rubbish. Ed Grossman, it's your station, so he is allowed to say this. Yeah, well, that's my point. That's exactly my point, Ed. It's like, if you're in Tesco's and somebody comes in and says, well, I'm just going to the front of the queue because I can. You go, well, I'm standing here. I've been standing in the queue. Françoise Pascal, she's English, white. It's irrelevant what colour she is, Françoise, but I get the point. She's English and cannot work because she has no bank account. Can't find work. Oh, really?
You know, there is actually a major flaw in the banking system in this. I mean, just not one. There's quite a few major flaws in the banking system in this country and possibly around the world. I mean, not least of all, one of the biggest things that I bang on about is how hard done by some individuals are who cannot invest in their own future because banks simply won't lend enough money for people to buy their own property, right? So that's one thing. But if we actually look at the situation that is needed for someone to get a bank account in the first blithering place, that is appalling. You need a home address. If you need a home address and you're homeless, guess what? You can't have a bank account. And I think that's horrific.
I don't understand this at all.
So to me,
go through that again.
Okay. If you open up a bank account, what's one of the first things they ask for? They ask for a proof of address. So if they ask for a proof of address from somebody who is, by definition, homeless, guess what? They can't provide a proof of address, and therefore they can't open a bank account. So,
and of course, no one's paid in cash. So, yeah.
It's horrific. I mean, it doesn't make sense at all. If you are going to go down a route of segregating off the most vulnerable members of society in that way, might I suggest that the best thing to do is have a system in place where bank accounts can be opened, maybe with a guarantor, maybe with a sponsor, whatever it is, whatever system you want. They can at least have a bank account, go out and potentially start getting a job where they can earn a bit of money and clear up a bit and start to try and straighten their lives. It's just
let's be clear. Banks do not want your business. The last thing a bank wants is your business. They're not interested in little accounts. They want my account, they want Phil's account. They don't want little accounts. We're a pain in the arse to them. It is directly linked to what Phil is saying, which I hadn't even thought of. It's an excellent point. Is the fact, of course, they're closing banks. They don't want interaction. They want us they want us to do all the work. They want us on our laptops and our PCs to do all the work on internet banking. Of course they do. They don't want Mr. and Mrs. Smith coming in with their little savings and putting the cash on the. They hate all that. Why? Because they've got to pay staff. They don't want to pay staff. They don't want the premises. They want it all done online, which was sold to us as the great white heat of new technology. Bullshit.
Well, here's a thought for you.
That's the point.
Furthermore, if someone's homeless, I don't know how they necessarily go around affording to pay for a mobile phone, a smartphone bill, having a smartphone that they then use to access online banking that they can't get to because they can't open up a bank account in the first blooming place. So you tell me how that helps.
Wait a minute. But a lot of people, I'm not even going to get into it. It's too complicated. It's so complicated. I think Paul has summed it up. I hope you didn't read this while I was dealing with my important post.
No, I didn't.
Paul says, I'm sure she would appreciate the warm coat because that's what Françoise is about. You see, this is it. If this year has taught us anything about mental health, about well-being, about the word I loathe, society, we're all on our own. We're all on our own. If we, don't look after each other, forget the government of any persuasion, doesn't matter, Labour, Tory, Lib Dem, or whatever they're called this week, doesn't matter. Forget them. They're not going to help. If we, as individuals, don't help each other, we're screwed. So there's this kid. She's on the street. She's been on the street for a year. What's the most practical thing that can happen? Françoise Pascal, that wonderful actress, is going to give her a coat. It's a simple act of kindness. It's going to change that girl's life. It's freezing out there.
Do you know what? I'm no businessman, right? As you may be able to tell. So I also know that one of the best things in life is to never give away a good idea to others. So why the heck I'm doing this on a show that other people can listen into and potentially nick the idea, I don't care. But so hell-bent am I on actually sort of seeing this idea come to fruition, I don't mind putting it out there. Why can't there be a bank that's specifically for people who are homeless and are addressless? I actually like the idea of there being a company that opens up with no other purpose whatsoever than to provide accounts and somewhere to store digital money to those who are homeless. Now, I can't do that. I don't have the means to do it. I wouldn't even know where to begin. It's not my expertise whatsoever. But if anyone watching knows anyone who is in that position or who is clever enough to do something like that, you tell them they can have that one.
Sue, it's an interesting point. Let's put it on the back burner. It's a good point. Sue Crespin, who runs Nailcoat Hall, which, swear to God, when this nightmare is over, we are coming down, Sue. I remember when the advert... we're coming down. I remember when the advert years ago, the bank manager was in the wardrobe. Schofield. They were the caring bank. I mean, obviously doesn't personal... You've lost me here, Sue. You've been spoiled by the BBC. So the banks aren't caring. My dad had the greatest expression about banks. He said they lend you an umbrella in the summer and they want it back when it's raining. So it's the fault of the internet.
This except people who are not homeless. Ed, I don't know. I haven't really said. Obviously, this is kind of like the birth of philosophy. I've kind of just thought about it here and now.
You are Descartes.
I can't say that I know the ins and outs, but I would have thought that it's obvious to have a bank in place who helps people who either have maybe, I wouldn't say a decimated credit score, because that's not such a hot idea. That's a very different situation. And potentially if someone is in that position, then they need to go through proper channels to make sure that they don't get into that situation again. But if you have someone who is homeless and who by definition is not allowed to open up a bank account, I would have thought an organization, a business, let's be honest, there are so many businesses that are banks now. Look at Metro. Metro is not a bank. Metro is a business. Okay, that just happens to store people's money. You look at something like Monzo, all of these different companies, they masquerade as banks, but they're actually businesses, right? So if there is one of those startups out there that would do something like that, I think it'd be incredible. And
hang on, Ed's come up with a finesse of your very clever idea. No, it was Andrea Lucas. I beg your pardon. My eyes were skipping there. There is an address somewhere that homeless people can use. What we need is a central address that they can then use that is legit.
Yes, but hang on. There's a problem with that, though. You need that as a proof of address. So you'd have to either produce a document that says that's where you live. You have to have an identification saying that's where you live. Many people wouldn't have passports or driver's license, so they wouldn't be able to do that. They wouldn't have utility bills because they wouldn't pay the utility bills. Their name isn't on the account, so they couldn't use that. It's unfortunately not that easy to do it like that. What I'm suggesting,
you're right.
It's got to be somebody. It's not just about having an address. It's about having an address that belongs to them. So what I'm suggesting is a bank system, a bank account, a bank company, that's the word, a bank company that actually specifically specializes in working with people who are addressless and either going down the route of sponsorship. So maybe they have to know somebody who could be their sponsor, who gives their address and acts as a guarantor for them. I don't know, but it's just, there's got to be some way around.
I don't know if this it's not my area, but I don't know if it contravenes some essential banking requirements. Could do.
It may well do, but I don't know. But there's got to be some way around it. I can't understand sort of why on earth this seems such an obvious way to help those in a homeless situation. I don't understand sort of why, for the record, if If this already exists, and I apologize if it does, because clearly I haven't done my homework if it does. If it exists, why on earth is it not better known? Anyway.
Government advisor on bullying report resigns.
Bro, the irony is, can I just say, allegedly, they probably got bullied into leaving.
Amused yourself. It's extraordinary because the PM backed Priti Patel. So I'd love to take that idea forward. Listen, you're already breaking. You listen, scab. Like to take that idea forward. I think we should run with it. I think we should run with this idea. I think it's a bloody good idea, and we can do this.
We'll make it an MRS campaign. Let's do it.
An MRS bank. Sue Cressman. All right. I made a mistake. Never admit it. I made a mistake on the text. It should say banks don't care these days about personal accounts. Really, no, absolutely don't. They hate us.
Oh,
banks concentrate on business accounts where they make more. I'm going. You can just see my where they make more funds. This next year, they'll be lucky getting funds from some companies. Damn right. After all, there are a lot of businesses that won't survive this awful pandemic. Yeah, they won't.
Can I just say, like, working from this angle, it looks like I'm co-presenting with an albino hedgehog. Anyway, right. Just thought. Paul's got a very interesting point. Here's another spanner in the works. Many homeless people have a criminal record and, of course, bad credit ratings, more hurdles preventing them from getting bank accounts.
The deal would have to be they can't be loaned money.
But that's the point. Yeah, that's exactly the point. This is not a bank that would lend money, which could be interesting in itself because, of course, a lot of banks rely on lending money to make money. So that in itself could be quite interesting.
How does this organization survive and employ staff?
The only thing that I can think of, and I don't think this would go down very well, but at least it would get some way to helping an individual who can't get a bank account out of it. I'm assuming the bank accounts would have to be percentage based. So in other words, it would be a case of that when someone has a bank account with them, that a percentage of earnings has to go as commission to said bank. That's the only thing I can think of because I can't see any other way that it would work.
There is the nucleus of a very good idea there. It's complicated, and I think they will put up every legal obstacle they could possibly think of before it would happen. But it would have to be a bank that can't lend money.
So let me put it this way, peeps, okay? It's very simple. I don't know if someone's going to hear this and nick this idea, but I'd like to think you heard it first.
We're all in this together. I don't think they're going to run off with it. You know?
No, but what I mean is it's very simple. If someone does take this, I'd love it to come to fruition. Love it. But if it does come to fruition, let it be known because it's on a recording right here on Men's radio station. You heard it here first. Yeah. That'll do it.
It's a nice idea, isn't it? See, another thing that drove me mad. I know we've got a guest coming in 2 minutes. Now, one of the twins used to.
He's not in the digital green room yet. So
his football is on the green. He's warming up. He's on the side of the pitch, warming up. He's running up and down in his tracksuit. If every small business, this is Sue. Sue, please never apologize for your texts.
You're joking. We love your texts.
We love them.
I'm just being silly.
If every small business sponsored a homeless person, just a small amount, then that could be another help. Totally. So could be. This is something that upset me. One of the twins at school got a job at weekends working for a major, did it all themselves. I had nothing to do with it. Football club, Premier League football club, selling food. So worked on a food concession stand, selling burgers and stuff like that. And it was, it was a job every other week that he'd pop along to at school to make some money, which was great. And at the end of the match, and remember, he's just one of many food concession stalls. There's tons of food left over. Tons. I mean, literally. Hundreds of burgers, sausages, all the stuff you buy at a football match, right? Very few filet mignon. And the crepe Suzette wasn't much to speak about. I'm just kidding, right? To the point. It was thrown away. And I went, what? He says, we have to throw it away. I said, where? You mean it goes somewhere? He says, no, it's physically thrown away, Dad. I went, this is madness. So I took it further. I took it a bit further, me being me, and I thought, people are starving. This is modern Britain, one of the richest countries on the planet. They're throwing away food. People would love this. Burgers, bread, sausages, all sorts of stuff, right? It's ending up on a tip. Why couldn't it go to a central place and be distributed? So the answer from the football club, I'm not going to name the football club, but it's hugely rich. I mean, you got players earning hundreds of thousands a week. They don't want homeless and needy hanging around the club. That was the answer that we got back. They don't think about that in terms of humanity. We don't want homeless and needy hanging around the club. So I then said, okay, it's your club, worth millions and millions and millions. Hire some vans for 50 quid and take it to a central place where people could go and get all this fresh food. Now, see, that sort of thing just upsets me. So I can't stand waste. It's such a simple thing. You're playing players hundreds of thousands a week. Hire a lousy van, shove the food in the van, take it to a central place where people could go.
Now,
difficult to do. Can it, Phil? I mean, it's not a logistical nightmare. It's simple.
Well, one would like to think so. You are listening, possibly watching Men's Radio Station with Russ Kane and Phil Dave. It is The Daily Show. And I'm delighted to say our first guest is poised like a spring waiting in the digital green room, being remarkably happy at the horror that lies before him. So, there's no expense spared on the sound effects, as you can tell.
That full musical introduction. It's fantastic.
Anyway, so ladies and gentlemen.
There he is. Oh, no, that's your dad. I thought that was him. I thought the guest had arrived in your studio. No, it's your dad.
Anyway, we're absolutely delighted to welcome him to Men's Radio Station. None other than, I think a bit of a Watford legend. I'm going to put it on a limb.
Bit of a Watford legend, the legend.
The Watford legend, Luther Blissett. Blimey. Hello, sir. How are you?
Come on, you bees. How are you?
Don't say bees. That's Brentford, man. What's up with you?
I don't know about football, Luther.
Hornets.
I knew it was something that stung.
Yeah, we've got a bigger sting than
Come on, Tottenham. I thought I knew it was something that flew and stung.
Yeah, Luther, it's lovely to see you. We're so sorry. Anyway, there you go. Dear, oh dear. Right, just talk about stuff if you need to carry on. Well, I
don't want to set the bar too high. Luther, thank you.
You know what? In the interest of transparency, I'm going to put this out there. I'm not sure whether or not that you've picked up on this, Luther, but neither Russ or I actually know that much about football. I'm just putting it out there. I can only apologise. It's completely
all I'd like to add to that is you don't have to worry. I know nothing about it either. All I did was play it.
I stress that it's a little bit ironic that my employer owns TalkSport, but let's not dwell on that.
Anyway, right. Now, Sen Monroe, straight away, one of our listeners going, Luther Blissett, top man indeed. I met Luther Blissett at the Grand Order of Water Rats Ball.
Yes, but you're not having it this year. It cannot go ahead this year. I'm so disappointed. It is a fantastic occasion. And they do raise an awful lot of money for charities at that.
It's a beautiful. The Water Rats are great, aren't they? It's a lovely organisation. Those things. Anyway, most importantly, how have you been doing in all of this craziness?
Craziness is about right. Let's be honest. When the year turned, and we came to 2020, who in their right mind, no matter how much of a visionary you may be, would have foreseen this coming and the way that the world and everything has changed. But thankfully, what we've managed to do is adapt, haven't we? I think really the majority of us adapted to it really well. And having to not go out, having to, yes, you wash your hands, but now you wash your hands every time you go near the front door or you do anything. I think I'm actually, the skin's changing, my colour's changing actually. I'm washing my hands that much at the moment. So it's it has changed an awful lot. Your outlook on so many things, on the simple job of going shopping. Now you do most of it online, and occasionally you go to the shop, and you have to be so mindful of that. There maybe people have gone around before you and touched everything. So if you do touch anything, you make sure it goes in a bag, and you get home in the car, sanitize it. The moment you get in the car, you sanitize everything. You get home, you sanitize it, whatever again, and it's just a completely different world. And
I tell you,
that interaction.
I can't tell you how much time now I spend washing shopping. It's ridiculous. As soon as I get home, I've got the antiviral spray out. I've got the wipes. I'm over it. I won't put it away. I won't let it touch anything until it's all been cleaned.
Yes, it is. It's become that ritual now that it gets delivered. I collect it all at the door in the bags, and literally you've got your bowl of your detergent or whatever there, and you wash everything down, and then you go and put it all away. And it takes forever. It's like an hour of your day gone just doing that task alone. So yeah, it's a very, very different place.
Now, Luther, I'm going to ask you, sir, whether or not we've got someone who said that they're struggling to hear you a little bit. So maybe if you'd be so kind to move a little bit nearer to your microphone, because even though you've got your headphones on, you're hearing us through the headphones, but I suspect that you're using the built-in microphone, and that's why we can't hear. But we can hear you, so that's fine. So,
okay, I'll shout.
Yeah, that's better. Lovely.
Is that better? Good. I'll stay in this position.
Thank you. Yes, I'm sure that will be very comfortable for you for the duration of this interview. I'm so sorry. But I suppose that one of the reasons that you're here is that you're a real ambassador and a champion for Prostate Cancer UK. And now when I was reading up about this, I was quite shocked to learn that it's not just a simple case, because I've always been taught the statistic that men have got a 1 in 8 chance of getting prostate cancer.
Yep.
But what I didn't realize is that 1 in 8 is actually if you're a white man.
Yes.
If you are of black heritage, that chance doubles, which I think is dreadfully scary.
It is very. I mean, when I actually heard that stat myself, I was really taken aback.
Yeah.
And on top of that, if you think of just culturally being from the Caribbean and places, men will not talk about things anyway. As men, generally, we don't like to talk about these things. But being from Afro-Caribbean background, you also get the point when that you never talk about it. You never talk about anything that goes on below the waist. If anything wrong, never at all. And I just felt it was very important to get that awareness out there for people like myself, so they can start thinking about, you need to get yourself checked, and you need to get this message across to, whether it be your wife, your mother, your sister, your aunt, whatever, because let's face it, none of us like to be nagged. So if the good lady indoors says, you go and get yourself checked, you will do it eventually, because otherwise you'll get it in the ear all the time. And that was the sort of way that's the way I sort of went around, preaching that to people. And thankfully, with the help of one or two, there's a chap called Errol McKellar, and he has got a MOT station in sort of Orient Way in London, and he would give a discount to anybody that came in for an MOT on their car if they would then go and get themselves a prostate cancer check. Brilliant, absolutely amazing, and he did it on his own back.
Okay, so I didn't know his name, but I think I've seen Errol McKellar before.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Brilliant. And that's what he did. So it was great. It was great to see somebody doing that. And all I did was just reminding people, saying you need to do this. I did 4 charity bike rides to Amsterdam.
I do like your approach to this, though, because what you're actually saying is that to get your message out there, you're going to cause an awful lot of husbands a lot of misery. Well done.
Yes, absolutely. And but it's simple. To avoid the misery, what you do is go and see your doctor and say, I want to have a test, because so many people have come across it in the past by accident, and most people, when they find out about it, is usually when they're dead, or they don't find out about it, but their
took my dad, Luther. It took my dad, and watching him go bit by bit was horrendous.
It's awful. It is really, really awful thing to do the whole. Yeah,
it is ghastly. He dodged it once, and then it came back. So it's something very close. It's something very close to my heart. For me, it's not academic. It's it's very real. which is why I was so thrilled that we were able finally, it took a long time, I know, to get you on the show and talk about all of this. It's so important.
It is very, very important.
It doesn't matter how long it took. Some things are worth the wait.
Absolutely right. Absolutely
I
right.
hope that is the case.
You're kidding. You're kidding. Now, people, do you think men don't want to go because they're generally scared of going in case it's a bad result? And if I shut my eyes and go, la, 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 it'll go away?
That is definitely a part of it. I think I myself, you've got to go and have a test about something, then you just say, right, bite the bullet and you go and do it. Because it's something you want to find out. And if it's something awful, you want to know about it. And if it's going to be good news, you doubly want to know about it. Yeah. So I think for myself, I would go, and it's not anything that would faze me too much, because I did a marathon back in 2004, I think, and about a week after, I went to have a wee, as you do, and there was a little bit of blood in my urine. And I went straight to the doctor that very same day and said, look, this has happened, whatever. And then I went through for the next 3 months where I've been doing different tests and whatever, and it came, negative, you're all fine. Apparently it was just bruising from obviously the running and whatever I've been doing. So I didn't have to worry.
But I bet you those 3 months are probably amongst the most heart sinking.
It does, because you don't know. Going day to day, you really don't know, and you want to know. And that's another reason why it's so important that men should go and get themselves checked, because it's something you can be very clear on very quickly. And that way you know your pathway, how you're going to go about resolving it, or you can put it to one side and then, you go about getting checked in a year's time.
Sue Cressman, who's one of our regular listeners and commenters on this program, she says that prostate cancer affects my husband's family, and she says that it took his dad and uncle. She says she makes her husband go for tests. Yeah. What I don't understand is that I feel like prostate cancer is a little bit what breast cancer was for women about 20 to 30 years ago.
Yes,
where we're sort of now starting to realize it exists and it could affect a lot of people. And some people have started getting into the habit of going for tests and getting into the habit of it. And yet now, if you look at where breast cancer screening is at, quite rightly, you have many people over a certain age are sent regularly for mammograms because they want to make sure they catch it nice and early.
Yes.
Now, I don't understand with a cancer like prostate cancer, which more often than not shows no symptoms at all until it's frankly too late. Why on earth is that not standard?
Well, it needs to be now. I started getting involved with prostate cancer, I think now back in about 2014, I think it was. And up until then, I really had not really heard of it. Not really heard of it then. I had the phone call, I had a conversation about it, and I thought, crikey, once I heard the stats, I thought, yes, I need to do something, because I know nothing. If I don't, I'm sure other people are in exactly the same boat. So it was important for myself to do what I could. And from a football perspective, because the audience that I suppose I can relate to and they relate to me is your man on the terraces, for want of a better phrase to use. So it was a case of using that through football to get men talking about it on terraces. And to be, when you're a new runner, look at the person next door and said, have you had a test? No, I haven't. Then maybe you should go and do it. And, it did start to happen. But it was a very slow process. Now, as you said, there's more of an uptake on it. But it needs to be more from, I suppose, as you say, from where they do now with breast cancer, because you now get that from the NHS contact you and says, your test, it needs to be on a very same par as that now for men. Not that it's anything we can do at this moment in time with this COVID stuff.
And the other thing, Luther,
excuse me.
The other thing, Luther, bless you. The other thing is that I know we drill this home. It is so time sensitive. It's not something you can sit around and watch the clock ticking.
You cannot put it off. You cannot put it off. I think once you get to an age, and I think 45 is a good age to make it a compulsory thing where men start getting tested. And the sooner that can happen, the better for everyone. Because men, and there are men out there that will not want to go. Just as there are women that don't want to particularly go to have a mammogram because they're a bit fearful of this. And that's human nature. And that's where your family and close friends and your support group around you can encourage you. You need to do this. And if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for us.
So there are some comments.
For our peace of mind.
There are comments coming in on this very subjects because we have people like that. They do like to comment, which is great. Ed says men are not historically used to getting regular checkups, whereas women or or girls are from a young age, rather.
Yes.
So I get that. I understand that. That's what I'm kind of saying. But bearing in mind that it normally takes about a generation to change a mentality, shouldn't we be starting this now and quite quickly?
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. It should be. And as I said, when I came on board with this, the charity, it was a case of what can I do to influence it and to just get that in people's faces, get people talking about it all the time. So it becomes a conversational piece. And it was, if you can't speak directly to the men, speak to their wives, speak to their girlfriends, speak to their sisters, their mothers, all, because they are the ones that can really drive that message across. It's that they say to them, look, we don't want to lose it and you need to do this. Most of us will eventually, get off our backsides and actually do something about it.
It's interesting. Sen Monroe, who's the chap who met you at the Water Rats, I'm on meds daily for an enlarged prostate, so I'm going out on a limb here and saying you're on Tamulocin, Sen, I'm assuming, something like that, which will help.
Whereas Andy Lucas has said that if there's a family history, people can have a PSA test yearly. If not, you should tell your doctor that you have symptoms. The problem is that the PSA can give false or negative or positive response.
Yeah, but I think the important thing is your doctor should be aware of your family history, and anyone in that bracket should automatically get tested. No doubts about it, because if you have it in your line, like you do in many other things, then it should be tested and that precaution should be taken. After that, I think it is important for you to take responsibility for yourself to actually go out and see your doctor and say, I would like a test now.
Now, this is a super important subject, but I'm very aware that sort of we've only got you for a limited time. And I really want us to talk to you about all of the great stuff that you're working on, because can you tell us a little bit about Sporting Memories, which I love the sound of this charity, and I'm ashamed I hadn't heard of it before.
Sporting Memories, well, it's not many people had, and I myself hadn't done. And when I got, I can't remember, I think I met them at a motor racing event or something they were at because of, I think it was. And, we just got talking, and it was a case of connecting with people with dementia through the memories that they have of sport, because we all have a memory that comes to mind regardless, and dementia is something that takes so much of a person away and you never see that again. But there are certain memories when it comes to sport and something that people really love, they will recall it just like that. They may forget their own wife's name or their husband's name or whatever, but when it comes to a sporting memory and it comes to mind, and they can tell you to a T everything about it. And that is the beauty of what sport does. And if you can get that conversation going with someone, then this opens up other avenues where they can actually take in more information. You can retain more of that person for much longer. And I think that is really the beauty of what Sporting Memories is, to get people talking about these things.
But doesn't it go to show, and I think it's really strange, I know that people sort of go around saying that sport is a hobby, sport is a love, but to some people, I think actually sport runs deeper than that. I think sport, to many people, from the way they behave, is intrinsic. It's part of the fabric of their being. It makes up part of, in a really soppy way, obviously I know it doesn't scientifically, but in a sort of in an emotional way, it makes up part of their DNA. And even though I'm not suggesting that by forgetting the name of a loved one, that they're not necessarily that close to their loved one, doesn't it just go to show how much sport can mean to a person if someone who is living with dementia is able to recall a sporting event over remembering a loved one's name?
Absolutely. And this could have happened 30, 40, 50 years ago. During this lockdown, I have been speaking to so many supporters and people around that have got various issues. And that, what you just say, really comes across as they need their fix of sport, whatever it may be. That is very, very important. And sometimes it's the fact that it's the camaraderie of them coming together as a group to watch something, and they discuss it. They may argue about it, but that sometimes overrides the actual sport that's going on the pitch. It's getting people together and discussing and talking about something that is a common interest and something they all love. And that is something that I have found through this period in talking to so many different people, that yes, they miss the football, but you talk to them now and they go, yeah, the football's one thing, but I miss what I used to do, meet up at my mates with these group of people beforehand, and you talk about it before, during, and after. And that, I think, is sport brings people together in a way which it doesn't matter what your background is. It brings you all to this common thing that you all love to discuss and be a part of.
Well, I just remember from when it was the London 2012 Olympics, and it seemed like the world was very different then somehow.
It was very.
It was almost.
It went so well. It went so well. Yeah. Question here, Luther, for you from Sue Cressman. I would love to know how Luther feels about the connection with dementia and heading the ball.
Yeah, it's. Someone actually rang me about this, and I'm going to have a conversation with them next week or so. I think there is obviously some connection there, because I think it's been pretty much proven that, especially in the days when the football weighed a ton, when you used to head it, used to get heavier and heavier as the game went on. Sure. You know that is almost literally like being hit over the head with a club, time and time again. So not really surprising that, evidence now is that there has been there's been a lasting effect that it does on people. But I think for myself, there might be, I don't know, but would it stop me from doing what I did? No, it wouldn't. It's something that I chose to do, and I love doing, and I scored a lot of goals with my head as well, so maybe that's not a good thing.
Did you know? I'm just curious. When people reach the level that you have, which is a very serious level, did you know from when you were a kid this was your burning ambition? That's what you wanted. You wanted to be a footballer, and nothing was going to stop you. Was it like that?
When I was a kid, I think you copy or you aspire to do something that you're aware of. And I came from Jamaica when I was about 6, and so when I was in Jamaica, you wanted to play cricket, because everyone, you play cricket on the beach. Cricket was played everywhere. Whatever it would be. I came to England and got in watching football in the playground, and you started taking part in it. And then you just love for the game. Then I saw the likes of George Best. I saw the likes of Pelé. I saw all these players. Clyde Best and whatever. I thought, that's what I love to do. But Best was the one that really, when you talk about romantic figure in football, he was the one. Because there was this, and he had everything, didn't he? He was good
everything.
He could play. He could, he just had everything. Yeah. And for me, I saw him and I thought, that is what I would like to do. And thankfully for me, I realised that dream. But it's never quite as straightforward, as easy as
it never is. But there's a lot of people who are watching now and go, that's Luther Blissett. This is great. And I wanted to be an X or a Y. Were you encouraged? Was your family saying, "All right, Luther, you've got a skill here. Let's help you"?
Or... I think my mother was very good. My mother was, if that's what you want to do, I'm here 100% for you. And she sort of, made sure I never went without. You had your football boots, you had whatever you did, and she never had a lot. She did 3 jobs to make sure that we could have what we, some sort of starting line. And so for myself, when she bought my first pair of football boots, and if anyone was to buy those boots now for kids now, they would not go anywhere near them. They look like those high, the ones that rugby used to be, with the high up by your ankles. And with those, they had 6 studs in them, but they were just rubber studs in them and whatever. And that was my very first pair of boots. Treasured them until they fell apart, trust me. And then I bought myself a pair of Puma Pelerios, which there's a story to that. I used to clean them when I used them, and they'd go on the mantelpiece above the fire. And my mum would always say, "Boy, take those boots off." I said, "Mum, no. They've got to be up there. They've got to be dry or whatever." And I said, they've got to always look good. But yeah, I was just very fortunate that my mother was very supportive, and family members were, and then I had that from the teachers and then schoolmates and whatever. And we just played football for the fun of it. And although I wanted to be a footballer, it wasn't the be-all and end-all of my life. It was a case of, if it happens, great, but I'm just going to play football because I love playing. And I played with my mates, and you just enjoy playing football.
I saw, you've just mentioned him, and I saw Pele's last professional game.
You didn't?
I did, in New York. Wow. I saw his last. I was invited, and he played for both
He was propping up a bar off of 33rd Street or something like that.
I was actually in the stadium. I was actually in the stadium, and it was Pele's very last. The place was heaving, and he gave the most wonderful speech. And it was even for me, who's I know little about football, but to have been there for that. That was the same weekend, Luther, that I was invited to see Muhammad Ali fight in Madison Square Garden.
Oh, goodness me! What a weekend! Has anything happened in life that has brought you anywhere near that again?
Weekend.
Yeah, it's incredible, absolutely incredible, because Pele was an absolute wonder.
It was never forgotten.
I'm not surprised. I was just thinking, in all seriousness, as you were talking about prostate cancer and lastly talking about dementia as well, and it suddenly got me thinking, of course, of Nobby Stiles, who, of course, he had both those conditions. I mean, obviously, he sort of lost him, but it was even so. When he, I'm not sure what took him first, to be honest, but I know that he had both those conditions. And then, of course, more recently, we heard in the news, of course, that Sir Bobby Charlton has been diagnosed with dementia, and I never really thought about the link until Sue mentioned it earlier on, just saying about what do you think about the link between those who head the ball and potentially getting dementia. But it's never really crossed my mind before. But that's quite a sort of a scary and dampening thought to the beautiful game, if that is the case.
Yeah, the thing about it is that something that is a major part of football these days? Because yes, players do still head the ball, but they don't head the ball nowhere near to the extent that we did. And I'm sure in training, once this became an issue, that they limit the time when you do actually head the ball to try and stay away from that, because we would competitively do lots of practice of heading the ball, and I used to do it even when I was a kid. Throw the old ball against the wall and be heading it against the wall. You'd be doing it all the time, just to get a good feel for what you're about.
Why is it gone out of fashion now, Luther? Why is it not so much part of the game? I'm just curious.
I think because people think, it's not the way to play. When you look back to the way that Spain played, Spain, I think, were the one that changed football over the last sort of 10 or more years, when they played their ticky-tacky football, where they kept the ball on the floor, move it very quickly, and people suddenly realised, we don't have to cross the ball anymore, let's play it like this. And everybody tried to play like Spain, but you need talented players, and a certain type of player to play that way, and everybody was trying it. Football is, the best football teams combine all styles of play for me and make the best of it. And I think you look at Man City, you look at Liverpool, contrasting look different, but they pretty much do the same things, but they go about it in slightly different ways. And they cross the ball when they have to, but if they can get the ball in on the floor, they will do so. And I think more teams are trying to work that way in, which sometimes makes it easier for defenders. So
I'm
a little disappointed, Luther.
Absolutely no flipping idea about football, as I did declare earlier on. Right? I'm just wondering whether or not, because bearing in mind the Health and Safety Brigade have ruined pretty much everything else in our lives, is there any way, when you are training, are you taught to head of the ball in a certain position or a certain part of the head, or is it anything goes?
No, you head the ball with your forehead, and it's something, if you head the ball with your forehead, you don't even feel it. When you head the ball properly, it's something you're not even aware of that you've done it, because the contact is just so good when you do it. And you can perfect it, and when you're very good at it, you're very good at it.
Now, Luther, as much as I appreciate taking your time to come on our show, I am a little disappointed that in half an hour you have not mentioned the greatest football team ever to grace the world, which is, of course, Tottenham Hotspur.
Of who?
A mention.
Who?
I'll say it slowly. Tottenham Hotspur, the North London team.
I'm not really sure what you're talking about.
Luther, luckily, here in the engineering department of Men's Radio, we have appropriate sound effects for certain names when they're mentioned. I think this is fitting. There we go. Anyway.
Oh, now I know who you're talking about.
Dangerous ground there. Interesting. Stu Cressman's come back with another point, talking about linking with heading the ball and dementia, the possible links. There's an American football. There's a film called Concussion with Will Smith. He's the doctor doing the research. I think that's an interesting. That's an interesting point.
It is, and I think when you talk about the American football, they have adopted, and and I think that film was made because of that, and the way they adopted and understood that how important it was to look after and do everything they can to rehabilitate all these people that end up, because it is a very, very physical sport, the one they do. I mean, when they hit each other, it's like, I personally, whenever time they do it, you just cringe because being in the middle of that. So
because they're huge guys, aren't they?
They are huge guys, yeah.
If you actually meet them, you think you're the size of a huge refrigerator. You're enormous.
Yeah.
Wide.
Yeah, they are, and I think because this was seen as a major problem, and it was finally diagnosed, and it was finally looked at by the actual football authorities there, and they accepted that the players that had suffered through it needed compensation and support and that sort of thing. I think it's worked out really well, and I think this going on here in England now with the head in the football, this will, I should imagine, go exactly the same way.
Yeah.
The good thing about it is, through associations and to help players and that, we at Watford, myself and Neil Price, have started the former Players Club. And that is, again, once you've retired mainly from the game, you lose so many things, that camaraderie, that routine, that being part of something, that shared thing. Again, just like the supporters on the terraces, you lose a lot of the same things. Now you're isolated a little bit and you're looking at the game from the outside. So being able to talk and communicate with other people that have been in your position, I think is very, very important, and you can help each other and you start a bit of a movement. And we're hoping to do the very same thing with this, because to face up to whether it be come through head injuries, from heading the ball or whatever, it's getting a voice. So when we attempt to do anything, you've got support around you, you've got your teammates around you, because the one thing that you always have when you walk out on the football pitch and in anything like that is that thing that I've got your back. That other guys have got your back, and it's that very same feeling is what we're trying to create with this. And there are other clubs that have got associations that they call it, but we're calling it as a club, because that is to remind people of where all of this started from. And it's very reminiscent of what veterans in the army, because with Remembrance Day just gone, we did a lot of things with veterans, and we find that they are very much in the same boat. They come back after the being all the things that they've gone through, the traumas and whatever, and that order, discipline, routine, and all of that is gone, and it's getting all of that back. I think that's very important.
I have to warn you about something, Luther. It's only fair to warn you this. That we have people who regularly watch the show and critique the program as it goes along, and they give us feedback and they let us know how we're doing, thumbs up, thumbs down, that sort of thing. Somebody by the name of Linda Dave, who I've absolutely no idea why we have the same surname, I'm sure I don't know that I'm related, has said, what a wonderful, interesting man Luther is. I'm so enjoying this interview. Thank you, Mother.
That's nice. Thank you.
Here you go. Right. So my mother.
You've had a great reaction. You've had a great. Now, when you were playing, I know you're on limited time, so I know how busy you are. But when you were playing, obviously you had to be very, very fit. And one of the things that so often happens, you see great sportsmen and they don't keep that up. Do you still? I mean, you look fit as far as I can see. Do you still train, or what do you do to sort of keep in shape?
I've sort of done less and less of the training, but yes, I do a bit of stretching from time to time and that sort of thing. But you have to find something that will help you with your own well-being, your own mental health and physical health. And you have to get that routine. And that's the routine that you've lost from being a part of a team, a group, and that sort of thing is what I alluded to earlier on.
Because you are in the process of adding a team of therapists to help the FPA, am I right?
Yes, that's right, yeah. That's right, yeah. That's right. We're going to be trying to do that, because the thing is, when you're going to be talking to anybody, yes, your experience is important, but you also need to understand how to speak to people in the right way to help guide them. Because you could very easily say the wrong thing, which could cause more of a problem than what is that? Well, that could escalate the problem rather than the other way. So it's very important. So yes, it's to help point people once you've got to a point where you no longer can help them and they need somebody real specialist, I think that is why we need those therapists that they can do that. And it's to get that in place. So yes, we do the initial talking and get to know them, we do the befriending and that sort of thing. But when it gets to the point they need that help that we're not qualified to give, we can point them in the right direction. But yes, we are still part of the process as we go along.
If there's anything that we at Men's Radio Station can do to support you, please just reach out. Be in whatever regard. I really, really appreciate that. Whatever we could do, because what you're trying to do is important.
I think what you're able to do, the medium that you have, is it would be an amazing thing if you could become almost a partner to what we're doing. So what
consider it done.
Yeah.
We're honoured and flattered. Are you kidding?
To with the former players, our former players club, to be a part of that and help us to get the word out there and get message across and contact people. And it could be a point where people can maybe contact you there and say, we'd like to speak to so and so, and you can put them directly onto to the club.
We'd be honoured and we would be flattered. Consider it done. That would be fantastic.
I suspect that we've probably taken. We'd love you as long as we can have you, but I suspect we've probably taken up enough of your.
If you want to chat for another 5-10 minutes, it's okay.
All right.
Well, you're going to turn that down. You're damn right. We want you, right? So.
Thank you. I'm just so aware. I never like to eat into your time. Ed Grossman, Luther, what's your view on the huge pay packets even third-team players get these days?
Yeah, well,
there's a question.
that is a question. We, as players, and when I was playing, you got well paid, but to the extent that players are getting paid now, and everybody will tell you it's the market value, and that sort of thing. But it's an awful lot of money. It is an awful lot of money that these players are getting paid, and you look the value in it sometimes, value in paying that sort of money. And where's it going to continue? How's it going to continue? My biggest problem with all of this is, can this continue the way it is? Where's this money going to keep coming from to keep these very high wages?
Magic money.
Where they are.
Yeah.
Well, I think if I'm honest, what worries me or annoys me even more is if one looks to non-league division and see how clubs just sort of in the blink of an eye can go bankrupt, and heaven knows how the heck they're going to survive COVID. But let's just talk about that afterwards, I suppose. But you look at the the non-league division, who regularly struggle to know where the next penny's coming from. A lot of the players even play out the goodness of their hearts because they know they can't necessarily get a wage half the time. The disparity is unreal. Seriously.
Yeah, I think football has, in a way, has lost its way a little bit when it comes to this. And it's all become about money. And we've forgotten a little about, we're all there. It's the game that is the important thing in all of this, So when I see, and we start at sort of the grassroots of football, and clubs are wanting success so much that they're willing to almost destroy the club to try and get there. It makes no sense. They need to go back to football being played away from the top flight, the professional leagues, for the fun of it. No problem with expenses, giving people expenses so they're not out of pocket for doing this. But it needs to be looked at. It needs to be looked at properly, I feel. Otherwise, more and more clubs are going to go out, and it's just going to be an awful thing.
Now, one of our producers, this is the first time this is the effect you've had, Luther. He has never, ever made a comment in 2 years. 2 years. Suddenly, Sinner, who is like the world's quietest guy, says, can you ask about his experience playing AC Milan? This is unbelievable. This is the effect you're having, Luther. Yeah. Sinner has never, ever contacted him when he's not on duty.
I've never actually known him to actually produce when we're live before.
No, I didn't even know he was watching. That's hilarious. All right, we can't avoid it. You played for AC Milan, one of the greatest teams ever.
Yeah, I did. One of the greatest clubs ever. And when you think they were the founding fathers, really, AC Milan, of football in Italy, organised the way it was. The opportunity came for me to go, and it was just one of those things as a kid. You think, one of the greatest clubs. Yes, I'd love to do it. Unfortunately for myself, I went at a time when they were rebuilding rather than actually be ready to go on and push forward. But the experience itself of being in Italy and living there and playing football there was something very, very special. Disappointed the team weren't a good team, but the just being a part of that was very important to me, and it was a good part of my football education, having come from Watford, where we had the likes of Graham Taylor, and it was about building something where it was you're all in it together. You know, it was going back to, yes, you've got each other's backs, you know, and going there, and it didn't feel quite the same when I went there at that time, because I think maybe the size of the club and the players that have been there and what they've gone through, they hadn't quite got themselves back to where they were.
Can I just say, I mean, bearing in mind, as I keep warning you, I mean, football knowledge is somewhat limited. I could probably write it on the back of a postage stamp, but even I know Graham Taylor, what a man.
Yes, Graham Taylor. You know, there are certain things about Graham that I think made him and allowed him to be successful and be the man that he was. Graham Taylor was, first and foremost, a very honest man, very honest, very straight up and down with you. He was a big family man, big on community, and all of those traits he brought to Watford Football Club. He made it first community club and family club, and everybody sort of copied that model ever since, and look where football is so much better for that, and Graham was the one that did that. Graham was the one that came in with a group of ordinary footballers from the 4th Division and dragged us all the way to finishing second in the 1st Division to Liverpool, which is quite an amazing feat, something the club's never done. They've played in Europe, they've got to a cup final. Things, when you put it all in together, the club has not managed to reach that level of consistency. Again, yes, they've been in the Premier League, but when you think second in what would be the Premier League, coming from the 4th Division, like we were, it's massive, absolutely massive. And Graham did that, and he created that, and you know, that's another reason why we started the Former Players Club, because Graham's wish was back in 2009, wanted to do that because he felt it was important for players, their well-being, their mental well-being, for them still to have a connection with each other on a common thing. And so what we do now, we do make these phone calls, we do lots of community things, and the Watford Helps thing throughout this pandemic has been brilliant to again bring us together on a cause which is so important to all of us.
Last question. I'm going to do this question from Kenelm Janur, who's he was one of the top Fleet Street writers for many years. Luther, do you feel the abundance of overseas players in the Premier League has limited the chances of young English players and thus hurt the chances of England team ever being successful, since the manager has fewer players to choose from?
Off you go in 2 minutes.
I think there's got to be something in that, because if you limit the opportunities for homegrown players to actually play in your top league with some of the top players, then they're not going to progress as quickly. And I think that's the position we're in. So to see the likes of Phil Foden now playing and scored a couple of goals the other night is brilliant to see, but it's taken him look how long it's taken him from the time he broke on the scene to now finally got his place in the England team. They only for maybe this game for the time being, but it takes time, and the players need to be exposed to that level consistently, which takes longer now for them. And so in that respect, the national team will take that little bit longer to find all the pieces for them to come together before you get that winning formula where we become like a Spain or a Germany or the Brazils and the likes of that.
Amazing.
Luther, it's been great. And the fact that you haven't walked away from me and Phil, whose football knowledge is minuscule. It's been the most fantastic conversation.
Well, it's not been about football, is it? It's been about life and life experiences. And I think one of the big important things about what we've spoken about today is the importance of men dealing with their mental health. You know, Dean Windass, I don't know if you know about the Dean Windass thing. Dean Windass, brilliant. His was, what do I do first thing in the morning? I make my bed.
Yes.
And that starts your day, and that is it. So it's again, routine. You get up, you make your bed, then you can get on with the rest of your day. When I finish playing, I think lots of players have been in the same boat. You stop playing your professional career. You wake up the next morning and it's, I haven't got to go training this morning. What do? And unless you've got something to go straight into, you go through this period where you've got to adjust and reassimilate yourself with life that everybody else has had to deal with, and you've avoided it because you've never had a proper job.
Yes.
So those sort of things are important. And I think for men, we need to talk about things, and we need to have places where we can talk and gather and talk about things in the right way, just as women have done forever.
And may I say, I don't think there's a stronger note to end on, but thank you so much, not just for giving your time to us, but for just fighting the good fight. Obviously, what you champion is very much what we're about here at MRS and WRS, and just it's enormously appreciated that people like you exist. So thank you very much.
Guys, it's my absolute pleasure. And if we can work together and help more and more people, men, women, just society, I'm up for it.
Well, we are totally up for it, and you have us
with us now.
You do have us at our disposal.
Thank you.
Especially now that one of our top producers, Sinner, is a huge fan. My God, we won't be able to stop him now. This is revolutionary. I can assure you. Blizzard, thank you so much. Great.
Thank you, Russ, Phil. It's been brilliant. Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
Have a lovely day.
Stay safe.
Bye.
Blimey.
Great guy.
I think, and we're in trouble.
That guy.
We're in trouble.
Well, what's the matter there?
We've peaked too early. And how on earth can we top that now?
What a great guy.
Amazing.
The top one. I've been after him for it's taken me a few months to finally get him on the show, but it was absolutely worth it. What a lovely man.
Oh, I'm just so, I mean, he clearly.
What a lovely man.
I'm so relieved, though, that sort of we managed to survive talking about football. Sounds almost like what we were talking about.
Two bigger idiots when it comes to football than you and I. You couldn't find them in Britain. You couldn't find them in Europe.
The fact that I am gainfully employed by the Wireless Group, of course, as I mentioned, which obviously owns TalkSport, is miraculous. But
I don't know how they let you in the building.
I'm not sure either.
I don't know how they even, if they said to you, don't they have something on the entrance? They go, who was Bobby Moore? And you'd go, did he play James Bond? That would be you. That would be you. You would go, who was Bobby Moore? He played James Bond. Good point from Ed Grossman. I didn't want to take up too much of his time, but I got here's a really good point from Ed, and I'm going to, where are we? He's paraphrasing. He sees the young kids. We're talking young. It could be 17, 18, 19, rolling up at White Hart Lane and Spurs or any of the other teams, and they're driving sports cars and Bentleys and everything way over £100,000. And I had a pal who's got a sports agency, and he has. We all right for time, Phil? By the way, all right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. So this is an important point about mental health, and I think you see where I'm going. My pal had this huge sports agency, which he still has. It's very successful. It's got over about 700 footballers on the books, about 700 on the cricketers and everything else. And he opened up in South America as well. It grew and grew and grew, this thing. And what you've got is very young kids. I mean, really young, who've come straight off, possibly a housing estate, when they're earning nothing. And suddenly they're earning money that a man in his 50s with world experience would be going, oh my God, I can't cope. You've taken this kid from nothing to everything. And
not to mention
like
money that they could only dream, not to mention
it's not even a dream. They don't know what to do with it.
But actually, it's not just football stars that have that. You've got to look at the way the pop world behaves as well.
The pop world. But this is even worse than the pop world. And the thing about it is, you go from nothing to everything, and it's mentally that adjustment. Now, you could be sitting at home or wherever you're watching and listening to the show, going, "Oh, well, sod them. Oh, I'd love to have those problems," but you're not 17, 18, 19 years old. These people haven't got a clue. And he had to really do a lot of mental health work and completely look after them. That looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Overhead shot, please. Overhead shot, please, producer.
Sorry, I was just taking it off taking it off.
Oh, that looks great.
Just taking it off the baking parchment.
Francine, if you're watching, I want that and a cup of one of your cups of tea. Oh man! Oh, she's in. There's a little. She's like the Alfred Hitchcock of radio. Your mum. There's like a guest appearance when she kind of floats through the screen. And anyway, my football agent pal used to tell me these amazing stories because these people had no idea. There was one story he told me. Is it good?
Yes.
Well, not so good. No, hang on. Is it not good? Or what's the matter with it?
The sample roll is too small, so it's a little bit burnt. The main hollow is fine, but the sample roll is a bit small, so it's been a bit burnt. But it's okay.
I've got another question for you, Phil, before I've interrupted myself. How much washing up is your mother doing today? She's been there for hours. She's been there for nearly 2 hours at the sink. Was she washing up the whole of the royal wedding? What's she doing?
Fine.
Oh, okay. Just checking. So he goes with one of his players, and they're sitting with the accountant. And, the guy's worth a fortune. And suddenly my friend's mobile goes, and it's a text. And it's a text from his client who's sitting a few feet away. And he just looks at his phone in the middle of this accountancy meeting, and he just goes, "Blimey, I'm effing loaded." Just fantastic. I'm effing loaded. And there was the stories but these guys have no idea. They've got to have the latest. They've got to have it now. He even opened up a car import business because these guys, this is where it all goes mad, Phil. This is where it all goes mad. It's not about sport. It's about mental health and attitude. These guys, rather than wait 2 weeks for the latest Lamborghini, Ferrari, McLaren, whatever it might be, they're willing to pay, and he told me personally, like they'll pay an extra £40,000 rather than wait 2 weeks so they can have the latest and the greatest and turn up at the ground. I mean,
it's a little bit like on a larger scale.
How do you live your life
bit
like
that?
that?
Yeah, but on a larger scale, it's a little bit like the attitude of those who queue up overnight to get the iPhone.
I don't get that either. What the hell's that about? What is that about? What the hell is that about? What's Kimmy saying here? Just want to say well done, Phil Day, for seamlessly stepping in and presenting a few minutes of James Max's show. Oh, that was fun, yes. Oh, it's from Paul Claridge. I beg your pardon. I misread it.
My God.
Who knew Phil was so good at presenting a radio show? You should try it one day. No, it wouldn't work out. Warm bread and proper butter. I'm with you, Angela Lee. Warm bread and proper butter. There's nothing really quite. Toast and Marmite. When I'm feeling blue, all I got to do is toast and Marmite. It's great.
You didn't get me making bread on James Max's program, that's for sure.
Can you imagine that? Linda Dave. Oh, she's away from the kitchen sink. Hi, Andy. Looking forward to seeing your. I'll give you another football story. Do you want a quick football story when they don't have a clue what they're doing? Because they're so out of their depth.
Ow.
He gets a phone call, and one of his players has wandered into a big electrical store. I don't know if it was Curry's, Dixon's, or whatever it was, and he wanted to buy like a stereo thing, right? Yeah. And the player phones up my mate, and he goes, the lady behind the counter is selling me. She wants me to take it on HP. Right.
What, the printer?
And I don't know. No, hang on a minute. I don't know what to do. Should I take out this HP? Like it's a contract. She wants me to do. And he goes, say his name is Phil. He says, Phil. Yeah. Phil, put your hand in your left hand tracksuit pocket, because he knew he always wore tracksuit trainers. He said, put your hand in.
Wearing tracksuit.
Right. So he puts it in. He says, have a look at the wad of notes you always carry. Yeah. Pay the lady with the notes. You don't need an HP. Just like, this is what you're doing. Bless them. They haven't got a clue. Why would they? And they make easy pickings. Easy pickings. So there's a lot of mental help. I know you're thinking, oh, screw them. They're making a fortune. I get that. But it's very hard when you're a kid, to adjust to that sort of thing. They're way out of their league. They know how to kick a ball around. That's their skill. but their life experience is tiny, absolutely tiny. I don't know what that is. That sounds exciting.
Are you sorry? Are we keeping you from something? Have you got somewhere else to
No, I
be?
don't. I'm not at all. What am I going to do? I'm going to walk the dog. That's my big thing. Walk the dog and then answer the 8,000 emails I have. Can we discuss the government's abandonment of the ministerial code?
Really?
If I was an intelligent person, Michael Swindles, I could. I don't know what I have absolutely no idea. I can't make any contribution to that debate.
Okay, so do you know what? So now hang on a second. I don't think it's so much the abandonment. Okay, the abandonment of the ministerial code is more about sort of this story surrounding I've forgotten what she is. Is she Foreign Secretary, Priti Patel?
Who? Yeah. No, Home Secretary, isn't she?
Home Secretary. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Of course, she's Home Secretary. I do apologize. Yeah. Sorry. This is more about. I suddenly forgot her job title. How rude of me. Anyway, no. This is more about the story surrounding.
I don't know.
Surrounding Priti Patel and whether or not sort of she broke ministerial code over the way she treated her staff. And as a result of it, you've obviously got the news that's broken today that the person who wrote that report has now resigned.
Well, that's what I read out, wasn't it? That's what I read out earlier in the show.
That's what Michael's referring to. I don't think that we're here. I think you'll find, Michael, that there are going to be loads of people talking about the breaking of ministerial code. But what I would like us to focus on, and unfortunately we don't have the time now because our next guest is waiting in the wings, but I think it's important on another show that we discuss it here on Men's Radio, is the bullying element. You know, there are allegations of bullying that have been thrown around. Yeah. And even though Boris is standing by Priti Patel, which is fine, his choice, whatever, she has apologized. Let's make that very, very clear. Priti Patel has apologized for her behavior in the past, which I think is more than a lot of MPs have done. Certainly a hell of a lot more than Dominic Cummings ever did. He never apologized for what he did and his behavior, and he's not even a member of parliament. So I think it's important to sort of stress that even though I would never, ever stand by or condone anyone acting in ways that could be interpreted as bullying, that she has at least fallen on her sword with that in that sense. Okay, she's not resigned, but does she need to resign? Does the country need that sort of instability where the Home Secretary walks away from their position at the moment? I think not. I think we've got enough to deal with it without that. But
Before we introduce our next guest, but just before he comes on screen, can you play the James Bond theme?
I can.
That would be cool.
Okay. Let's see what we can do.
You know, the one that goes ding, 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 ding. That one.
Oh, thank you. As opposed to the other James Bond.
Stuffy civil servants set in their ways, don't like being told off by a strong woman. Kimmy, I've got to tell you something.
Russ, sorry. Are you talking about that James Bond theme as opposed to the other James Bond theme? Just checking.
Well, I thought you might start playing Diamonds Are Forever or Goldfinger or You Only Live Twice. Or
you said the James Bond theme.
No one can do it better than you, you dirty swine. I agree with Kimmy. Kimmy's got a really good point here. A really, really good point. Ed, I wish we had time to come back about the young footballers getting no education. You're absolutely right. And they come out, they know the square root of sod all. Stuffy, I love this point from Kimmy. It's a really good point. Stuffy civil servants, they've got jobs for life, by the way, don't forget. Set in their ways, don't like being told off by a strong woman. I think there's a lot of truth in that. I really, really do. It doesn't excuse...
There may well be truth, but believe me, I have seen that attitude in, quote, strong women before, and it ain't pretty. And that is no pun intended.
No, I know who you mean. We won't get there.
So my point is that there are ways of telling people.
Not everything in life is, black or white, right or wrong. Life is a complicated thing. And I think Kimmy's point is a lot of people, even in 2020, do not like being bossed around by a female. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just a fact of life. Some people just don't like it. And they would take extra exception if their boss is a woman. And they'd probably take it if their boss was a guy.
Ramsey says, can't believe that for a mental health station, you are condoning. No, we're not.
Hang on. No one's condoning that behavior.
Never said that. In fact, on the contrary, I think you'll find I said I can't condone it. Condoning Priti Patel's behaviour, workplace bullying is a big cause of mental health issues. You're absolutely right.
That's why we have shows about it. Ramsey, you're preaching to the converted. That's why we set the station up, for goodness sake.
What I have said, and what I've said, and I stand by it, is no one would ever condone bullying, but I don't believe the country needs the instability of losing a Home Secretary at the moment. Don't get me wrong. She needs to be brought to task, and an apology goes so far, but I would like to think that any other person in any other workplace who is found to be guilty of bullying, if she is indeed guilty of such behaviour, will go through the proper retraining of how to deal with staff. That's how I'd expect them to be treated. I don't expect someone to be fired for making a mistake. That's ridiculous. What kind of world do we live in? If you make a mistake and you're out.
Yeah, you make a mistake, you're out. Angela Lee, she may apologise. Doesn't mean she's really sorry. We don't know. We don't know.
I have no idea.
We don't know Priti Patel. I've never met her. I've never spoken to her. She might be sorry. She might just think, "Oh, sod it. I have been caught out. I'll do some bullshit apology, and that will get me off the hook." Let's be honest about it. Who knows?
But as I say,
politicians, Angela.
At least she made that apology, which Dominic Cummings never did. So I'm just saying that there are some people who can do the right thing sometimes, even if their behavior is what caused it in the first place. Anyway, look, I think it's a big subject. I don't think we're going to have time to talk about it now.
It's a huge subject, but I just want to reiterate something on a serious note. Phil, I certainly didn't say it, but Phil did not condone bullying. We'd never condone bullying on this station, ever.
Yeah. Anyway, look,
we'd be the world's biggest, most stupid hypocrites if we did that.
Look, to be honest with you, Russ, it's fine. I'm not even wasting my time justifying it. I know I didn't condone it. Right, let's move on. And we can say now that we're oh, blimey. No wonder. This is why we needed this music. This will give you a little clue as to what our next guest does. Excuse me. Oh, yeah. Anyway, that's enough of that. Anyway, delighted.
Enough of this. That's not the greatest tune ever. I love that tune. Any opportunity. Monty Berman.
Right. Anyway, well, let's welcome along Stephen Thrift, who's an investigator, intelligence analyst, and close protection specialist. I don't even know, Steve. Are we even allowed to see you? This sounds like you're giving yourself away.
You can see me, yes. I think that was in another life that you were talking about, actually.
Phil, you've fallen into his first trap. That is a false beard and false glasses. He looks nothing like him.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Who is that? Oh, you're back. Phew.
Yeah.
See, this is how good he is, Phil. That is how good he is. He disappeared, became a different person. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, not at all. We thought we'd big you up because I was reading all your stuff. I have terrible sleep problems. So 3 o'clock this morning, I'm going through your bio and everything, and I'm thinking, this guy is pretty damn cool.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, because you do everything we dream of, and Phil and I, the last job, apart from being professional foot, there's a theme to today's shows. What jobs could Russ and Phil not do? 1, professional footballer like Luther Blissett. 2, be like Steve Thrift.
Can I just?
We're rubbish.
There is nothing. I'm not entirely sure why Sina has gone down the route of trying to make us feel this big today, but thank you for it.
That's why he's put. Now, Steve, tell us a bit about yourself, because I think this is really good.
I think the most important thing is I'm a former police detective, and I've changed tact, and now I write books.
Yes.
And I write books that are a mixture of fact and fiction, mostly. I call it faction. And the first 3 books are a fictionalized account of the Craze and the Craze trial in London. And what would have happened should they have been found not guilty by foul means or fair.
What a clever idea. How did you think about that? Where did that pop from?
I thought about it when I was giving evidence in the Old Bailey in a 10-handed armed robbery trial at the number 1 court. And I thought what an interesting place. How many interesting people have been sentenced to either death or life imprisonment in this courtroom?
Yeah.
And the craze, obviously Hanratty and people like that, and the craze came to mind. And I thought, well, I wonder why somebody hasn't written a book about this before. But that was a long time ago, and it took me 30 years to write the book. But hey, it's done now.
I thought I was slow.
But you got to give these things.
I was slow with my second novel. Wow. You know, Steve, I've got to tell you something very, very weird. I took a holiday job as a kid, and my parents wanted me to be a lawyer, so I was a lawyer for a brief time, and I hated it. But I took a holiday job from school, and I went along, and Mum said to us, put on my little suit and tie, as you do. And Mum said, now look, this is the first time in a proper job. It's a holiday job, so you'll just be doing the stamps and going to the post office and, you know, licking envelopes, and you'll be the dog's play. I said, Mum, of course, obviously. I walk in to this legal firm, right? They hand me a pile of papers this big, straight. I've been in the legal profession for about 3.5 minutes. I was straight off to court number 1, the Old Bailey, for a murder trial. I'm not making it up. I was petrified. I didn't even know how to get to the Old Bailey. This is true. I sat going, what am I doing? I thought I was going to lick stamps.
The most intimidating place for anybody, let alone a youngster.
It was terrifying. It was terrifying. How long were you in the police for?
Just 10 years.
And was that something you wanted?
Years. I'm sorry, but I don't think it's just that. Must have been one of the most intense 10 years of your life. I shouldn't wonder.
It was pretty intense. Yes. I always wanted to be a detective, and that's what I managed to do. And that's how I ended up in the Old Bailey, as giving evidence and not as a defendant.
I was going to say the right side of the dock, I assume. But
correct.
That's quite handy. Yeah, I remember the case. It was this murder case, and there'd been a fight in a pub, and the guy had stabbed him with our client had stabbed him with a little penknife, little silly penknife, you know, nothing big, not like today's machetes and all this madness. And the guy's arm had gone up and caused the air to go in, and the blockage in his arteries had killed him. So just one of those stupid accidents. Well, you know, what do you mean? So, how was your mental? I'm going to bring it back to mental health. When you were in the police, how did you deal with the? Then we'll get onto your books in a minute. I promise you, because I'm fascinated by all of that. But how was your? How did you deal with all the stress when you were doing this?
When I was in, I think it was a lot different than it is today, because they have things like counsellors, and we were told just to get on with it, basically, man up and deal with it. How life has changed since then.
Man up.
So we dealt with it.
Jeez.
We dealt with it, or we went mad, I think, was the thing.
Did you internalize it, Steve? I mean, you're in the front line. It's bloody dangerous. Did you internalize it? When somebody can say man up and all that sort of old-fashioned nonsense that we fight against now, did you? How did you cope? Or you just got on with it and you didn't think about it?
I just got on with it and didn't think about it, to be honest. Yes.
Wow.
Because if there was no way that you could complain about somebody being nasty to you like they do these days, it really was that harsh.
Extraordinary, isn't it? Do you think, looking back as it was then, sort of ashes to ashes, to how it is now, do you think we've come too far, or do you think we've got to the right level of helping people?
I think we've come far too far. It was better in those days, I believe, but that's all I knew. And the ashes to ashes thing is correct.
So, in what way do you think we've come? Because this is fascinating. I promise we'll get on to your main subject. Don't worry. But you know, obviously, we're a station which is geared around mental health and well-being.
Yes, of course.
So some people will be going, "Yay for Steve Thrift," and other people will now be chewing the wallpaper because they're so upset.
I'm sure.
They'll be going absolutely potty. I dread to think what the pictures are going to come up any second. So, why do you think we've come too far?
Because being a policeman, you have to expect the unexpected at the very least, and that unexpected does often entail violence towards you and towards what you represent. And you have to be aware of that and accept that that's part of the job that you signed up for.
You don't, but did you not think? Look, I've never been a policeman. Phil, definitely never been.
Phil certainly hasn't been a policeman.
He was milk monitor once at school.
I've never been an eye in the sky, have I?
Oh well, bless you. that doesn't. Yeah, but I mean, one's arsing about and one's doing something very serious and grown up. Now, the thing, do you think that the people, you've just said, yeah, you could face extreme violence. You've got the possibility of death. You don't know. The guys could have a gun, a knife, God knows what.
Yes, I'll speak to you about that when you speak about the books, because there is a true story there, by the way. Okay.
But the point is that level of adrenaline. I mean, we've had lots of policemen on the show because it's fascinating, but they said they got addicted to the adrenaline.
Yes, and a lot of them got addicted to alcohol as well, I would suggest.
Are the two linked?
Yes, very much so. Well, they were, certainly, yes.
In what way? Was it because you needed that high the whole time?
No, you had to relax. I think you needed to be able to come down slowly from it. So because there was such an adrenaline high at times, and there was such very bad lows as well.
When you were on a shout or whatever they called it from the Sweeney, when I watch stuff like that, Steve, and I think, if my life depended on it, I couldn't do it. There's lots of things I can do, and I surprise myself. And Phil would be, I couldn't do that. I would be terrified. And yet somebody like yourself, and I'm not putting words in your mouth at all, would say, great, now we're going to see some action. I'd be saying, can I not do a bit more paperwork? I really don't want to get my face smashed in. Do you think it's a different type of mental makeup, isn't it?
Yes, and there are people exactly like that in the police force that would prefer to be doing paperwork and keep their heads down at a desk than to be out on the street and deal with the bad people.
Now, Stephen, as you've already alluded to, you, sir, have written no less than, am I right in this, 6 books?
Yes, just about to finish the 7th, yes.
Oh, good Lord. Right, well, there you go. So please do. So for those who are not necessarily familiar with your work, and we mustn't take for granted that everybody is, tell us a little bit about your style, because I'm guessing your work has potentially influenced your writing.
Yes, very much so, yes. Like I said, the first book is a fictional account of the Krays trial in London, and what would have happened had they been found not guilty through coercion and jury tampering. And I have 2 books that follow on from that. They're called the Truth series. The first book is called Nothing Like the Truth. The second book is called Still Nothing Like the Truth. And the third book is called The Whole Truth. And the trilogy is to do with the Krays and their reign of terror continued after their trial in the Old Bailey when they were found not guilty for many years.
How would you go about creating that parallel world? Is it a case of looking into the psychology of the Krays and then learning how they behaved in terms of sort of when they committed crimes and what that could lead on to as it progressed in their, I don't know, criminal career, do we call it?
Yes, I think so. Well, I'm very fortunate enough to have been able to connect with people that knew the Krays. And one man in particular was a young mechanic at the time. His name was Bernie Feynman. And he's been a great help to me. He actually liked the Krays and couldn't say anything bad about them because they treated him well.
Why is it? You see, this really fascinates me. Now, my dad was brought up in Whitechapel, born in Whitechapel, all around there. And when I was a kid, we'd go past the Blind Beggar pub and he says, son, when you grow up, for God's sake, don't go in there. So, this is not alien territory to me. Why is it all these years later, we are still I'm not going to use the word idolize, but we still seem to be fascinated by Reg and Ronnie Kray, when no one is fascinated by the Richardson gang, for example. What is it about them that people keep making movies and folks like yourself write books? Why?
I think because the locals saw them as local heroes more than anything, because they did, without any doubt, do a lot for local people. But it was all a bit of a con. If you look into it deeply, they never put their hands in their pockets. They managed to persuade other people to donate, and put their name to it, mostly, in my opinion, and in my research. So it's a legend that's been built up out of a myth.
But they were, unlike virtually any other criminal that I could think of. And let's not do any gags about politicians, everybody. But any other what you call professional criminal and violent criminal. These are not white collar. These are not white collar crimes. These are absolutely revoltingly violent.
Exactly.
Why is it still seen as glamorous? Why were the stars of the day, and we're not going to name them, why were the stars of the day so happy to be photographed with the craze? I mean, you want to be photographed with Fred West.
Well, I mean, that's David Bailey is responsible for that, isn't he? For glamorizing it in those times by taking their photographs along with those of the Beatles and the other celebrities, and they were put in that category, I think, because of David Bailey's exposure and the photographs that you still see today.
Well, you do. I mean, it's the classic photo of them in the.
Yeah, still see today, by the way.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. But it's a weird thing, isn't it, that there's not overall revulsion and people flock to see this. I don't know how many movies have been made.
There's two decent movies made and another one which was dreadful.
Which ones did you like?
The first one, the Craze, the first one with the Kemps.
Oh, the Kemps.
Yes.
I thought having Martin and Gary in that was really inspired, and I also like his name's gone right out of my head.
Tom Hardy was the other one that was in Legend.
But what was the one where it's gone right out. He's one of my favourite actors as well.
Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy. He was brilliant.
Yes, he was. Yes.
Brilliant. That was an extraordinary film.
Yes.
Extraordinary film. And that was the nearest, I thought, when they leave the pub and then they come back into the pub and you see beneath all that sort of cheap charm and the nice suits, the sheer brutality and violence that lurked in both of them. It was a shocking scene and visceral as well, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. There's no doubt they were violent and nasty people.
And yet we go and see films about them and go, hooray, it's the craze, isn't it?
Well, the public are always fascinated by gangsters, by violence, aren't they? That's why they're so popular, I guess.
But the other thing is, I've often wondered, and again, make it very clear to people that I am absolutely no psychologist whatsoever, but I have a fascination in psychology, and I've always found it really interesting how people have this kind of almost morbid fascination with illegal activity. So in other words, and I don't think it's idolizing, I just think it's a curiosity into sort of the mindset or the ways in which those who do break the law openly and proudly behave.
So I think you're right, and hopefully that's what sells books as well on the same subject.
Now, speaking of your books, Mr. Thrift, here's a question for you from Kimmy Lashmar. Is it true that they protected the money coming from the booths of the Dartford crossing, so people moving the money were protected for a percentage, I presume, and never got robbed?
I don't know. My answer is I don't know, but I would think it probably was correct.
Okay. And Ed Grossman says, asking question, saying to you, Steve, thug celebrities were an import from the USA. Kind of the Al Capone, I suppose you think about.
Yeah, I guess they were, but they still existed in this country as well, didn't they?
Interesting. Right. Let's get on to your books. Are you gonna? Were you holding one up just then?
I was. Yes.
Let's have a good butcher's.
That one there.
Nothing like. So tell us how it goes. All right. Tell us how it goes.
Like I said, that it starts. It's about.
I know they say judge a book by cover, but I love that cover.
Thank you. I do too. It's basically the trial of the Craze in London at the Old Bailey, with some twists because certain members of the Craig gang interfere with the prime witnesses and change their attitude towards the outcome. And the outcome is unexpected, but there are also 3 people who the Craze have upset greatly that are out to kill them during the trial. and that's the twist at the end of the book that follows on to the next two books.
And
that's what I'm going to say about it. Buy the book if you want to read any more.
Okay.
Not you, Russ.
You get me scared now. This is that. I'm getting a hint of what it's like dealing with the craze. Buy my book, okay? I'll buy 12. Don't hit me, not the face. I do like books where they take facts and they say, "But what if?" Very similar.
Exactly that's what I've done. Yes,
it's very similar to what Tarantino did, isn't it? With Tarantino in Inglourious Basterds, where they, the end is fantasy, and of course the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where the end is completely reversed to the actual events. You go, oh, that's great. I wish it had been like that.
Yes, I thought Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he probably stole the ending from my mind, because I was thinking about writing about the same thing. To be honest,
were you really?
Yes, I was, seriously. Yes.
Do well, yes. Excuse me.
How would it have been? How well was that portrayed in that film?
Well, and not only that, I mean, RK, you've said many a time on this program, book 2's idea for you was originally.
Oh, yeah, the original book. My book came out last year, called The Gatekeeper, and then the follow-up book, which I'd done all. Well, you know what it's like, Steve. You write all the draft, the draft synopsis and everything. It was called Agenda 21. And I say it now and everyone goes, yeah, but I mean, it's a fact. My agent had the book years ago. That it was a pandemic. It was about a virus. And all the publishers said, no, we like the third idea, invasion, better than the virus idea. Yes. Go figure. My book would have, the Agenda 21 virus thing would have been.
Russell, there's a very obvious answer to that, obviously. I mean, I would suggest that your agents were part and parcel of the New World Order that's out there that's controlling all of this. So that's clearly why they didn't want it to be exposed ahead of time.
Yes, and you have a Chinese agent, obviously, don't you?
Yeah, it's all gone horribly wrong. Now, you were a close protection expert as well.
I did that in the police force, yes.
So tell us a little bit about that, because one of our regulars, Paul Claridge, is forever getting duffed up in East Croydon. He gives out free newspapers for some reason. That seems to cause great offence to the population of East Croydon. Bizarre.
Yes. No, it was just I was with a member of the government for a couple of years as one of his close protection officers, which is an armed job.
So you were armed, yes.
And I carried on that overseas around the world when I left the police force as well.
And is that like we see it in the media and the movies and TV, or is it completely different?
I would say it's completely different, because obviously what you're seeing on the TV is sensationalized, and in real life it's very, very downplayed. You blend into the background rather than stand out as someone in front of a camera.
So you're not walking around with the earpiece and the Ray-Bans and the dark suit looking butch.
Not so much like the Secret Service do, no. Hopefully you wouldn't know who the protection officers are unless you got in the way.
That's interesting. Now, the other thing I really did want to talk to you about was your analytical work, if we can. Can you just shed a little light on that?
Well, yes, that was just analysing people's issues, companies' issues with security, wherever that happened, and they may be serious issues, or they may just be issues with people stealing money or goods, and that's something that I still dabble in, but not too much now, because the book writing has taken up my time and my mind now.
How long is it? You said it took 30 years from the original idea to completion?
First book, yes, to finish it, yes. Okay. Yes. But now I've gone mad, and like we said, I've just about finished the 7th book now.
Might I suggest that it's probably a good job that you learn to speed up the process, because otherwise on that...
take 210 years to be where you are now.
after I finished the second book, otherwise, wouldn't I?
But, my maths isn't brilliant, but the fact you're on your 7th book, you look pretty good for your age, all things considered.
210. It's fantastic. Do you give yourself a routine with your? I'm asking for once. I'm asking purely personally, everybody. Do you give yourself a routine and say, right, I'm sitting on my bum and I'm writing out 1,000 words and I'm not leaving till it's done, or do you do it when the muse is on your shoulder?
Well, mentally, I set myself a goal to do a certain amount of words per day, and that could be 2,000, 4,000, 5,000 words a day.
Get out.
And once, no, that's what I set myself a limit of, and if I get that, then I can stop. But I'm so intense with it that I can't stop once I start. And
for those of you who have never written a book, which is many people, what Steve Thrift has just said is beyond belief. Because a lot of people say, if I can do 500 good words,
nothing like the truth, actually, but it is the truth.
It's extraordinary. That's extraordinary.
I think you need to remind people the names of the books, just so people know what they're looking out for.
Well, the first book is called Nothing Like the Truth. The second book is called Still Nothing Like the Truth. And the third book is called The Whole Truth, which is all based on the oath, obviously. I've also written a book about a book called Jack, which is about Jack the Ripper in 1988, with a change in police procedures and forensic science.
Oh,
and that's
sorry, Steve, can I tell you something else? So I wrote another story. I said, this is the book I want to write. It's about Jack the Ripper in modern times. All the publishers. No.
Yeah.
We don't want to see another Jack the Ripper. I said, but I think this is a great storyline for set in, now. No.
Well, let me tell you. Can I tell you how that started?
I understand. He was going to call it Jack the Twitter. But anyway.
Can I tell you how that started? That idea started?
Yeah, go on.
In 1988, there was a film made with a man called Michael Kane and another man called Lewis Collins, and it was supposedly the true story of Jack the Ripper. They had evidence that it was the true story. I was involved in that because Lewis Collins was my best friend, and I was on the set of it. And it was I thought it was a great portrayal. And at the end of that particular filming, the cast split, which was vast, and everybody involved in it, including me, had to write down on 20 pieces of paper who they thought the killer was. And everybody had got 20 pieces of paper to say who Steve Thrift said it was so-and-so. I think myself and one other had the same guess. They filmed 4 endings for that, and they showed one that they said was the definitive killer. I still don't believe that, because that wasn't my theory at all. Anyway, I stuck to that theory of who it was, and the same man lives in 1988, and was Jack the Ripper there in my book. But what I would like to say about that is that's going to be released just before Christmas, and I'm very happy to say that I've had so much positive feedback from that from some wonderful people, including the policeman that was in charge of Whitechapel during 1988, and 2 members of EastEnders, Gillian Telforth and Anita Dobson, have written forwards for the book for me. And because they were in Walford, which, as you know, is about a mile from Whitechapel at the time of my book's setting.
Are we allowed to know who you think did it?
Pardon?
Are we allowed to know who you think did it?
Well, you could always buy the book, or I could send you one. But
who do you think the actual Jack the Ripper person was?
It was Dr. Gull. It was Dr. Gull for sure. Dr. Gull was Queen Victoria's surgeon.
Really?
You're looking confused there, yes, but
because there's, everybody has their theories. There's so many books on it.
Yes, but mine's correct, and nobody else's is. That's the thing.
Well, there you go. There's the confidence. I've ever heard it. I love ending on confidence. Even thrifted.
Maybe it's one should. I don't know how pushed you are for time.
Well,
can I mention another project?
If you can do it in a minute, that would be amazing. But if not, go for it, sir.
Okay, I've written a true story for the first time, and it's a true story of a murderer and a fantasist. His name was Michael Telling. He was a multi-millionaire, illiterate, killed his wife, cut her head off, and I've had a lot of support from that, from the sister of the victim and one of her best friends, who was so terrified she moved to the other end of the country to get away from this man, who was sentenced to life imprisonment, served less than 10 years, then was allowed to go to Australia and rebuild his life.
No.
Yes, it's a fascinating story that reads like fiction, but in fact, this one is true. And that's what I'm writing now. I will have finished that by the end of this month, I'm guessing.
Sorry, he cut his wife's head off and he only gets 10 years. How does that work?
Yes. You tell me. Well, he got life, but he served 10 years.
I get that, but why did he only serve 10 years?
Well, you tell me.
Well, I can't tell.
The thing is, money speaks. But before that, he'd pulled a gun on me. He had illegal firearms, etc. And he was.
On you.
He was fine. Yes, that's how I knew him. And I knew him, and I knew his victim, and that's why I'm writing the book, because it fascinated me for that long. I tried to contact him many years ago when I thought he would be in prison, but he'd been released, and not just released. He was released. The Home Office didn't know where he was, and if you're convicted of murder or manslaughter, you're on license for the rest of your life, which means 24 hours a day the Home Office have to know where you are. Except if you're Michael Telling. Nobody knew where he was, and nobody has cooperated so far. There's a lot of people, like the police forces involved, the Home Office, and ministers have either blanked me or not wanted to get involved.
Good Lord.
He was Lord Vestey's grandson. That makes some kind of sense, I guess. No, it's Lord Vestey's cousin, second cousin.
Well, I tell you what, Steve, I think the only thing we can do is ask you to come back another time and tell us more about it. I think
I'd love to do that, because it's a very long and involved story that has been a long time in the making.
Wow.
Anyway, thank you very much indeed.
All the books?
Yep, absolutely. Do a search.
Thank you so much.
Steve,
I'll send you a copy.
Find the books. Marvelous. That's what we love to hear. Thank you.
All right.
All the
Thank
best.
you so much.
Keep well.
Bye now.
There we go.
How do you? Here's the thing, Phil, Dave, right? If I stray into a bus lane, I'm being serious. I'm not being that facetious. I stray into a bus lane to avoid a cyclist, usually, for like 20 feet. The authorities are over me like a rash.
Yeah, because you're not threatening, and that's easy.
A guy cuts his wife's head off. Can't say, oh, it was an accident. She kept running into the blade 27 times, and he serves 10 years and buggers off. That's unbelievable. How does that work?
It is. That's very heavy. So I suggest we cheer ourselves up a little bit, lighten the mood, and thank goodness it looks like the legendary TV guru herself agrees with me, because I've just seen nodding with head.
Is she nodding? Is she looking coiffured? We love her coiffure.
You know full well that Chantel never has so much as a hair out of place. So, ladies and gentlemen, can I just say, hear ye, it's now time to welcome to Men's Radio. What?
I said you sound like Panto, like part of the town crier. With Cinderella's having a ball.
It's supposed to be town crier. I want people to pay attention, damn it.
We love Chantel.
Sit up.
Carry on.
Show respect for Chantel Rickard. Chantel, hello, good afternoon.
It definitely is Panto time down at the studio.
That introduction. It was the longest introduction in the world.
Anyway.
How are you?
You all right? You okay?
I'm very good. I'd like to just add something to that last conversation, because MRS is about men's mental wellness.
Yeah.
And actually, this is a very long debate, and we probably shouldn't start it now.
No, go ahead.
But I am a slightly wet hippie liberal, as we all know. And actually, the guy who did that to his wife probably, in my opinion, had been suffering from some mental disorder, which makes me want to be more compassionate towards him. I don't think he should have been let out after 10 years, but actually I think that the guy had a screw loose. That's the medical term for it. And I think, mental unwellness comes out in all shapes and forms. Yeah. And I think probably he was suffering very badly from some terrible psychosis. And but I'm not a doctor. That is just my hippie West London liberal view on life.
No, Chantal, don't get me wrong. I think you raised an extraordinarily valid point, but at the same time, isn't extinguishing a life extinguishing a life?
Yeah, it is.
It is for the wife. The end result is ghastly. It's interesting. I know we're getting slightly off-piste, but everything.
I'm be able to play the TV theme now, am I? But anyway,
patience. Everything that Steve Thrift was just talking about really was all about mental health, because he's got 3 books about the craze, effectively, and they were not. You don't do what they do if you're completely okay. If your mental health is 100% fine, you would not be doing the level. I understand crime. I understand protection. I understand the economics of it. The economics of crime, I totally understand. But the level of violence is got to be a certain type of person to indulge in that sort of thing. It's not in everybody's makeup, thank God.
No, indeed.
Anyway, you'd never see this on This Morning. Let's go from talking about murdering someone to this. Oh, yes, absolutely. I tell you what, you'd never hear that on the Today Show either. But anyway, let's go straight to
doing that. That would have been brilliant.
Would have to be honest, I would have tuned in more if I'd have heard that. But anyway, Chantal, obviously you are here to grace us with your expertise and your knowledge of all things televisual. And
indeed. And we'll go straight from one crime story to another crime story, because I have found a cracking Scandinavian, a Scandi noir TV series that's...
Did I make notes?
Yeah, all 8 episodes are now up on the BBC iPlayer. It's called DNA, and it's absolutely terrific. I fell across it last week, and I had to watch all 8 episodes back to back, which I think it must have been a rainy Saturday afternoon, but it's definitely worth watching. Based in Copenhagen, there's always a sort of slightly cranky police officer in the middle of all of this who's a good guy with good values.
It's a bit like...
Is it what? Sorry?
It's a little bit like this TV. It's a bit like this radio show.
Oh, a bit like that. But actually, the thing about Scandi noir things is that the endings are never obvious, and they make you think slightly harder. And there's much more about the personal story of the people involved. So the stories are richer because the characters are richer. And actually, this character, Rolf, I'm almost sure there's going to be a second series. I couldn't find mention of one on the net today, but actually, I think it will have done incredibly well. And I'm sure they'll do another one. But again, he's a sort of slightly broken character, mainly because 5 years previously, and you find this out right at the beginning of the program, is that he lost his daughter overboard on a ferry trip.
Ugh.
When he was on his way to pursue somebody who had also lost a child. So there are 2 missing children. It's called DNA because the whole DNA system is put into question, which is absolutely fascinating. And it really is worth watching. It's 8 one-hour episodes on the BBC iPlayer at the moment, or on BBC 4. So catch up with it.
English or subtitles?
Kimmy asks, yes, and I think I don't think this is a dumb question at all, Kimmy. I think it's a really important question. Is it in English, or is it dubbed, or is it subtitled?
Subtitles.
Okay.
So there are lots of views around subtitles. Some countries in Europe use dubbing a lot, like the Poles are more used to dubbing. I don't particularly like dubbing. It sort of irritates me when the mouth is doing one thing and the ears are doing something else.
I don't like it.
But a lot of people don't like subtitles. And actually, if you're tired, subtitles are quite tricky. So those programs that have got subtitles, don't watch them at bedtime. And you certainly can't watch them when you're doing the ironing, because otherwise you have to keep looking at it.
Can I suggest that? Actually, I think if I'm in the mood for watching subtitles, then I don't think it's too bad, because to me, it's a little bit like a visual accompaniment of reading a book. and I quite like that.
Oh, okay.
So
right. Loads of questions for you, Chantal. As soon as you turn up, the place goes mad. Right, Francois Pascal, whom I'm sure you know. Chantal, I won't do it in a French accent. What do you think of the series Hollywood? I must say, not liking it at all. It's more like dirty porno. Oh, hello, I must watch it. What is it?
Is that the one on Netflix? Francois, is that the one on Netflix, Hollywood? I hope this is. If it is, then I thought it was terrific. Absolutely flipping loved Hollywood on Netflix.
What our expert has to say.
Well,
I think we may have talked about it some months ago.
We did.
And I think we decided it looked wonderful. It's quite gritty. It's quite full on, but very good acting. So I can't remember much more about it than that, but I definitely got to the end of the series. And if I get to the end, then normally that's a pretty good sign.
In a nutshell, I do remember very clearly what Hollywood was about. It's about these budding actors who obviously go to, funnily enough, Hollywood. And what they do is in a bid to try and make a living whilst they're trying to break into acting. And it features characters based on real Hollywood stars. So I know that one character is Rock Hudson, for example. So I know it does feature real Hollywood actors within this, in the sense that the actors who are playing those real Hollywood actors, if you see what I mean. Anyway, the storyline is that you've got individuals who are trying to make it big in Hollywood, and to try and substitute their lack of income from acting, they stumble across a chap who is ultimately, I suppose he's kind of like it's going to sound gross, but I'm sorry. He's a pimp for gigolos is the best way to put it.
Correct. Yeah.
Best way I can describe it.
Yeah. And so, and one of them works in the petrol station. And anyway, it's good. It's worth watching.
Gas station.
Do you remember? It's definitely worth watching.
Station.
Yeah. And there has been a long documentary film that came out about 2 years ago about the same character. I can't remember the name of the documentary film, but it's a fascinating story. The real story is extraordinary.
At the gas station, that isn't it? Yeah. Now, Ed Grossman, another thing for you, Chantal. See, it's like throwing a match onto a bonfire. Chantal, loving industry. Thank you. That was
good.
But The Crown, Gillian, Ed, you know her? Gillian is overdoing Mrs. T. Diana can't be that childish, surely. That's from Ed Grossman.
Well, actually, Ed, I was going to say right at the start of this, but we got slightly sidetracked, that if you're not watching The Crown, you should be watching The Crown, quite simply because it's the most extraordinary programme that's been made by British producers in many, many years. It's a $130 million production. It looks incredible. It is the story of us, whether you believe in all the different little details or not. It is the story of our lifetime, generally. It's incredibly well done. It's very well written, but I absolutely agree about Gillian Anderson. I don't think she's right for the part, but I'm putting that aside and I'm just going with the flow because I'm really enjoying the programs anyway. But I think, Ed, you're completely right. She's turned it into a bit of a cartoon character of Thatcher, and I think Thatcher was sort of gentler in her look than she comes across in the program.
Now, bearing in mind, I haven't seen series 4 of The Crown yet because I'm still catching up on series 3, if I'm honest. So I'm getting there. Don't worry, I will catch up eventually. But all I do know is that sort of from footage of Mrs. Thatcher that is out there is that she was quite a caricature of herself anyway. So even though I can't comment necessarily on is it Gillian? Who's it? Gillian. Thank you,
Gillian Anderson. Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't remember her name.
That's what she is. That's who she is.
Even though Gillian Anderson, I dare say, who's by the way, I think is a superb actress anyway, so I don't really care too much what she does. To me, she can't do any wrong. But even so, I suspect she's probably just sort of seen footage of Margaret Thatcher out there, and frankly, who can't say, she was always spoke out the side of her mouth, and always very much like this, whether you like it or not. And that was very much her thing, her style.
She come back from the dead for a minute there. That was uncanny.
Although, interestingly, Phil, at the beginning of her career, or the beginning of the career that we all know about from when she became a minister and then on to prime minister, her whole tone and look and everything was, and her voice, much, much softer.
Yes.
And then everything changed. So she got these weird mannerisms. Her voice modulation changed completely. And she sort of grew into the characteristics. She wasn't like that right at the beginning. Certainly that's not my memory of her from 1979. But she did become a sort of cartoon character by the time she left office.
Now, a man in 2 years has never, ever come on. In fact, our producer, Sinner.
I know. Like waiting for a bus twice in one show.
This is unbelievable. Here, I'm going to win the lottery tonight. Any thoughts on Queen's Gambit? Well, Chantal loved the Queen's Gambit. Everyone's raving. I haven't seen 30 seconds of it yet, but everyone's raving about it. Presumably, it's still
on my watch list. Chantal, I have to tell you about a series that I have seen. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't. If anyone else wants to watch this, you're welcome. I'm not talking exclusively to Chantal, but I need to get the thoughts of the guru that is. And it's on shock horror. It's on Netflix. I know. I seem to be a walking advert for Netflix, but even so, this series is called The Alienist. I don't know if you've heard of this.
Seen it. Great. Seen it. It's brilliant.
Oh my God, The Alienist is incredible.
And it's won awards and it's highly regarded. I personally haven't seen it. I know some of the team from LA who are behind it, but it's very, very well thought of. But I'll dig into it a bit more before next week so that I can give you a sort of critical approach.
One of those things, Chantal, I found it quite by chance, I think at the beginning of the year, I think even before lockdown. And I came across it by chance and I had to binge watch it. Another little recommendation, if I may be so bold.
Excellent. Good. No, well, we love recommendations.
It's different because it's a South African show. What?
Mr. Kane, sorry, can I just say for anyone who doesn't know The Alienist, I think I need to offer the briefest synopsis just so people know, sorry. So it's set in the late 1800s or 1890s, I think, is in New York, but in a very, very different looking New York, obviously, because it's all before the massive skyscrapers come into force. And it is about a chap who is just developing, or he's actually sort of got a more of a fascination in criminal psychology, which in those days was absolutely not taken seriously. In fact, on the contrary, you were probably treated as mad yourself if you were looking into criminal psychology. It's about how the New York State Police Department were ultimately trying to solve a crime of young boys who dress up as, well, frankly, they dress up as young girls, really, in a bid to try and get sort of attention from, well, let's be frank about this, perverted men, if we're honest, in a bid to try and get their attention, to try and get a bit of money from them. And what happens is that these boys are sort of, a lot of them being murdered, frankly. So the series, this is the first series, not the second series. The first series follows the story of this alienist, because they're called alienists, because in those days, those who were suffering or living with mental health conditions were treated as aliens, in inverted commas. That is literally how they were almost known, as aliens. So therefore, he uses criminal psychology to try and solve the murder, and it's just brilliant. No other word. I apologize, Russell. That's synopsis.
Good.
I'd forgotten all about the show. I was recommended to a South African series, so Phil's ears would prick up straight away.
Yeah.
It's called Trackers.
Yes, indeed. Just started on Netflix.
One of those things that I sat down and I watched, I think it's 7 episodes, 6, and I had to binge watch the whole thing to 3:30 in the morning. Had to, because I had to find out what happened. It was excellent.
Good. Well, I'm pleased to hear that. I've only done half of the first episode, so I don't feel sort of well-versed enough to talk about it. But if your recommendation is anything to go by, then I shall definitely be watching that this weekend.
I'm just wearing my punter's hat.
Remind us what it's called and where we can find it.
It's
Trackers on Netflix. Yeah.
And what is good about it, apart from the storyline's really very strong and the characters are interesting, you don't know where the hell it's going. It's all over the place, and you think, how's this going to mesh together? But it does.
Yeah.
Is that you get a different sense of location. So for once, it's not in gritty London, or it's not in LA or New York, or Chicago. It's in South Africa, which has a very different feel to it, and that's really it's interesting. Because they make use of the landscape and they make use of the urban environment as well. So it was jolly interesting.
Good. Excellent. Well, I've made a note of that, so I shall definitely get stuck into that over the weekend. But I was going to take you back to something that actually has been on our screens for ages. But if you're feeling even a little bit blue, it's something to watch. because it's full of compassion, and B, because somebody else's life is always a little bit shittier than one's own. And it shouldn't be overlooked as a TV show. BAFTA gave it a special award last year, and it's DIY SOS, which has just done a Children in Need special, and then a follow-up program that came out earlier on this week. So they've only made 2 programs this year because they've had, real problems in making them. They were able to make one during lockdown, and one was made in the months prior to that. But it's just a wonderful program. It's got all the best attributes of a good story, great characters, and people really going out of their way to do something for other people. And as we all know, there's nothing that makes you feel better about yourself than doing something for somebody else. And that just runs through, every single frame of the program.
Forgive me, I'm really, really ignorant, but I don't know what it is.
So you should, is all I can say, because it's been on primetime BBC One for 20 years. It's fronted by Nick Knowles, who I used to work with 20 years ago. He fronted City Hospital for BBC One that we made together some time ago. And it's a makeover show, but for people whose lives have been blighted in some way. Okay. So the one I watched last night was a beautiful program. The mother and son and young daughter had lost both another daughter and the father in the family.
Oh my God.
And they were all completely traumatized by what had happened to them. And along comes DIY SOS basically to sort the house and garden out and give them a whole new perspective, both an emotional perspective, but a physical perspective on what is around them. And it's an incredibly good show. And it's been absolutely one of the building blocks of the BBC's primetime programming for 20 years. So you should do it.
It's honest to God, if you ever need a program to make you feel good about yourself, feel good about humanity, and make you appreciate what you have around you, for heaven's sakes, watch DIY SOS. It's such a brilliant show. I don't know whether or not, Russ, if you've ever seen the American version of that, which was a program called
Extreme Makeover Home Edition.
Oh, yeah.
So it is the British version.
Move the bus.
Yes,
it's that
or whatever. The lorry moves. They go.
Yeah, it's the British version of Extreme Makeover Home Edition. Is the only way to describe it. But in my humble opinion, it's better because you don't have all of those irritating cutaways where you have the person, whether it's Ty Pennington who presents Extreme Makeover, sitting in front of a green screen and saying, "This was a really serious situation. No, we didn't know whether or not we were going to get plasterboard or not." I just think, for God's sake, no one wants to hear that. That is boring television. It's cheap television, and it's not interesting. DIY SOS is just perfection. It's amazing. Amazing.
Is it up there with Selling Sunset?
It's way better than Selling Sunset. Selling Sunset's terrible, and nobody should watch it. I mean, it will not make your life one bit better. Not one.
Because I think I'm going to go her for lunch, her for dinner.
Anyway.
Well, then here's a question. Chantal knows me too well. Sven Monroe says, what are Chantal's thoughts of Sneaky Pete? I saw some of this. Written by Bryan Cranston and stars Giovanni Ribisi. Couldn't make it any harder for me, could you, Sen? Have you seen Sneaky Pete?
It's very interesting. I never quite got into it. I watched the first couple of episodes and I kept thinking, am I going to get stuck in even more? It's a very interesting premise about somebody who comes back and says they are somebody, and you're never quite sure if they are actually that person or not.
Yeah.
It's so the premise is good. Haven't got into the series, but it's one of those series. It's well thought of, it's well produced, and it's well written.
It looks great. I got to be honest, Sen. Like Chantal, we'd not discussed this at all. I think I watched 1 or 2 episodes and I thought it's good. it just didn't grab me. It wasn't like I've got to get to the end of this because I'm so excited by it. But Bryan Cranston, fantastic.
Bryan Cranston is God as far as I'm concerned. He can do no wrong.
He is excellent. Nick Knowles,
he's the Breaking Bad guy. For those that don't know the actors' names, if you watch Breaking Bad, he's the lead actor in Breaking Bad.
He was great at the National in, come on, Rossi, Network. got tickets to actually see him in network, and he was very, very good. Chantal, Ed Grossman agreeing with you, of course. Nick Knowles does great work. It's important stuff.
Good. I'm glad. It is important stuff.
I mean, you're knee deep in the industry. That's what you live and breathe. It's in your DNA. Nick Knowles it's really interesting. He's one of those Marmite guys, and a lot of people are very rude about him. You know, they criticize him. I always think on TV he does a great job, personally. I've met him loads of times. He's always been really very charming to me. So
the thing about Nick is he's entirely authentic. Nick is absolutely his own person. He is genuinely compassionate. He puts so much time and effort into supporting charities. He's got more charities to his name than anybody else I know in the industry, actually. He really, really puts time in to help out other people. And actually, I can't speak too highly of the guy. He's very good to work with. Not all presenters are easy to work with. And Nick is. And I gave him an interview once to interview a 13-year-old girl who knew that she was going to die, and she wanted to talk about it on camera. And that is literally the most difficult interview I'd ever asked anybody to do on a program. And he was remarkably good. He just manages every single time to hit exactly the right note. He's not mawkish. He doesn't take the mickey, but he keeps it light enough to let people talk. He's an incredibly accomplished broadcaster and a very nice bloke.
I might suggest as well that he doesn't do that awful thing which an awful lot of presenters do who put themselves in those sorts of situations and makes themselves look good for it. It's much more the spotlight is focused on the individual at the center of the story, and that in itself is quite rare in those sorts of situations.
Yeah.
And I distinctly remember a firm part of my sort of favorite daytime lineup was City Hospital. You know, I'm actually very sad City Hospital stopped. And of course, one of the best things about City Hospital, not least of all, is how feel good the program was. But of course, the introduction was the instrumental from The Way It Is by Bruce Hornsby.
Bruce Hornsby, my favorite piece of music. Yeah, it was great. It was a lovely show to work on.
Person here on screen who never ever watches daytime TV ever. It's my golden rule. I never ever. I won't have the TV on. Earliest would be 8 o'clock. Normally, I don't switch it on until about 9 or 10. Just won't. Yeah, won't do it.
No. Well, there we are. No, City Hospital was a great show because it was live. It was about real people, real stories. We had, I think, something like 80 staff down in the hospital, you know, moving cameras around from hither and thither. And it was great for public Health England messaging, getting all those great messages across about how you can look after your own health. I think it should be on every day, quite honestly.
So do I. And actually, what I like about it is that live element meant that there was no... as much as I love, and I know we've spoken about it before, I love the program 24 Hours in A&E. Okay, it is an amazing program, no doubt about it. But the problem with that is that because they are looking at a span of 24 hours, they're chopping out the best bits of that. So you don't necessarily get it as it unfolds before you. And that's what I loved about City Hospital.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Anyway, wait, Chantal, I can't believe we're rapidly running out of time here. So let's quick fire. What else?
Okay.
What we're looking at
Two things. One for the guys and both for the guys, really. Great British Bake Off is coming to the final this coming week. So if you haven't seen it, go back and watch all the episodes on Channel 4 so that you'll get there in time for the final. I watched the semi-final yesterday. It's very well made telly, definitely worth watching. And then one definitely for the guys is the new Nigella series. And the episode last night has caused enormous controversy because she taught everybody how to butter toast. Anyway, I will leave that with you.
Have I just given the game away actually of what her unique style of buttering toast was? Am I not supposed to reveal that? Do you want people to watch that?
I don't want people to watch it. It's ridiculous. Oh, but it's caused a lot of controversy about how you butter toast.
Fine, then in that case, in a nutshell, I've heard about this. I confess I didn't watch it, but I've heard the news reports this morning. The outrage is that you have to wait for the toast to heat up. Subsequently, you butter it whilst it's hot, let the butter melt, and then you spread another layer of butter on top of it once it's cooled down a little bit, just so that it doesn't melt into it. Have you ever heard such bunkum in your life?
Yeah, all the way to the bank.
Pay her a fortune to
I will not have my Nigella slagged off.
No, the boys love her. And hey, listen, I am not against it. You know, any 60-year-old woman who's still rocking it on television is all right as far as I'm concerned.
Her live show, I took my daughter, because she's a huge Nigella fan, and I took her to see her live show at the Bridge Theatre when we had a live. It was when I say there wasn't even standing room. You know, she could have come on, burped. I've cleaned that up. Burped, and the place would have given her a standing ovation. She was hilarious, and people absolutely they just worshipped her. Yeah. Anyway, there.
And the Lawson family were from Lions Tea Rooms. For people who remember Lions, that was the original family background. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much to all of our guests. The incredible Luther Blissett. He's coming back, no doubt about it. Thank you also goes to Steve Thrift as well. And we must say thank you, of course, to Chantel. Mr. Kane, I suppose I should say thank you to you. Don't know why.
I turned up. I have to be passing. Thank you very much. Without you guys, we are nowhere. So thank you so much for all your messages.
On Monday at midday. Goodbye, everyone.